Good evening. I'd like to call the Windsor Board of Education regular meeting Tuesday, May 17th at 7 p.m. To order. This meeting is being both in person and also we call it hybrid because it's also being broadcast via Zoom. So if we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and then a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. The next item on the agenda is recognitions and acknowledgments. And this is often a great evening where we get to celebrate our students. And Dr. Hill, I'll have you go on next.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this is actually one of those nights that we love during school year. So each year, the Windsor Board of Education recognizes two outstanding students from both Windsor High School and Sage Park Middle School to receive the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education Student Leadership Award. This award was developed to give the local boards of education a chance to reward student potential. Students who are selected exhibit exemplary leadership qualities as defined by a list of criteria developed by the CABE Board of Directors. So to introduce our recipients this evening, I will start with Sage Park Middle School and ask Principal Leanna Jorgensen to come forward and introduce or present.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
It is my sincere pleasure to be able to introduce to you two outstanding students of Sage Park Middle School this evening. Tonight, our first award recipient is Mr. James Wong. Stand here so you hear me talk nicely about you. It's my pleasure to present the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education Student Leadership Award to Mr. James Wong for the 2021-2022 school year. James has earned this award through his academic performance, community service, and leadership capabilities. James has been on a high honor roll every year since attending Sage Park Middle School. He always gives 100% of his effort. James has been the recipient of multiple Student of the Month awards for his achievements in academic field. Mrs. Renard, his language arts teacher, discusses academic and leadership qualities. James is a leader in the classroom. When he speaks, he commands attention and the students listen. James always backs up what he is saying with evidence and confidence. When given a group task or a student-driven discussion, he leads his peers and makes sure the task is completed to the best of all the students' abilities. He is strongly involved in National Junior Honor Society and takes an active role in participating in every volunteer opportunity. Through his work as a member of the National Junior Honor Society, he assists many nonprofits around Connecticut and volunteered for leadership roles in the NJHS clothing drive. James is also one of the only 8th graders who uses his voice for school and community change. He is confident in his abilities to discuss his arguments for change with administration, I should know, in both the school and in the community. James has played his cello for the Windsor seniors at the town center. He recently also assisted 5th graders with their transition visit to the Sage Park Middle School. As an active student council participant, James helps with management of school activities and assists staff members. On top of this, James commonly rallies his fellow students to take charge as well. On multiple occasions, he has run petitions to change aspects of the school to increase the benefit for all students. I'm a recipient. Mr. Guerrera, his social studies teacher, commented on his leadership abilities. James Wong has a genuine passion for social studies, especially in the subjects of politics, economics, and how they relate. He will often take any topic we are reviewing in class, such as the Bill of Rights or the Industrial Revolution, and see not just the impact the event had on that time period, but how it also relates to today. He understands the importance of learning from history to make a better tomorrow and always strives to see the bigger picture. I have no doubt that he will continue to hone his skills in this field and turn this passion into a career. James is a well-rounded student who adds to our school community and our overall community. I am proud to honor him with the CABE Award this year.
Thank you.
Congratulations again.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you, Superintendent.
Can you see everybody? Yes. Do we need to give a motion? I'll take credit. Thank you.
All right. Next, it is my absolute pleasure to present the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education Student Leadership Award to Magetomy Nyang for the 2021-2022 school year. Magetomy is deserving of this award because of her achievements in leadership and academics. Magetomy has shown countless times that she has leadership qualities and can help her fellow peers. In the classroom, Magetomy shows generosity by assisting her classmates with their work without being told. When she sees people struggling, she tries to help them through it in the way she can. She also portrays Sage Park's three main core values of respect, responsibility, and safety. She shows kindness towards her peers and teachers, and she is responsible with her work. She always makes sure that everyone around her is doing well, which is an important value at our school. Not only is Magetomy a role model, personality-wise, she's also very skilled academically. She has received both honors and high honors throughout her entire middle school career. She's also received the Student of the Month awards for many different subjects throughout her time at Sage Park Middle School. In 7th grade, she also received the prestigious Dr. Sanders Award. This award honors one 7th grade student who most exemplifies the characteristics of academic success, positive leadership, and community service. She stays on top of her grades despite the challenges she might face during school. It is clear that Magetomy comes to school every day with a positive attitude and the intention of making every day better than the last. She puts effort into her classwork, and it really shows. Outside of the class, Magetomy participates in after-school activities and clubs to improve herself and others. She is the vice president of the Builders Club here at Sage Park Middle School, which is a club that promotes leadership and hospitality. Builders Clubs host many fundraisers and donations, which Magetomy has a huge role in. She's also part of the Leadership Club, which is a club that teaches our students to take charge and to become someone that others look up to. Magetomy shows the qualities of a leader and is always willing to admit her mistakes and improve herself to be the best that she can be, which is another reason why she was chosen to receive this award. Mrs. Deed, Magetomy's social studies teacher, states that she is a quiet leader who is thoughtful and is always willing to help others in the classroom. She is a natural helper who presents herself as a person who is approachable, empathetic, and motivating. She doesn't push her ideas on anyone, but expresses herself in a way that elevates class discussion and shows her peers new perspective on historical questions. Dr. Fitz, Magetomy's science teacher, states that she's a superstar. She states that I believe that with great knowledge comes great responsibility, and she embodies these values. She is willing to share her advanced understanding of science concepts and helps to elevate her peers on a daily basis. Leadership and positivity comes natural to her. She doesn't have to force it. It is who she is. It comes across as a desire to share knowledge with the sole purpose to help others. As the house leader, I can say she is an inspiration to all of the teachers and the students assigned to House 5. Magetomy is the best person to represent for this award because she shows the traits of leadership. She is nurturing, understanding, emotionally and academically intelligent, and most importantly, she is someone that all of our students can look up to. Time and time again, Magetomy has proven that she is a force to be reckoned with, and she's shown that her presence in this school is a vital need, especially when she calls me out. We are proud to have her at our school, and we can't wait to see where she's going to be in the future. So with further ado, please welcome Magetomy Nyang, our CABE Award recipient for this school year. Where's Mom? Mom and Dad?
Congratulations.
Sister?
Thank you, Principal Jorgensen. And now coming forward to introduce our CABE Award winners from Windsor High School will be Assistant Principal Phaedra DuRost in place of Interim Principal Breanne Parker.
Good evening, everybody. I am proud to present our CABE Student Leadership Award to Emma Butterick. Emma is a natural-born leader who exudes positive energy and inclusivity, and most would describe her as a breath of fresh air. She has served as captain of the varsity soccer and varsity lacrosse teams and will play D3 lacrosse at college. She has been involved with the Big Sister Mentoring Program, the Student Leadership Council, and Athletes for Action, an organization promoting social justice through Windsor High School athletics and increasing school and community awareness around social justice issues. Additionally, she's a member of the Action Club and has served as student advisory leader this year. She is a bright and attentive student who exemplifies a high level of integrity, confidence, and maturity, who has developed a genuine interest in learning and expanding deep into her academic studies. Emma has challenged herself by enrolling in our highest level courses and exploring her interests through the numerous electives our school has to offer. Currently ranked in the top 5% of her class, Emma embodies the true model of a scholar and well-rounded contributing citizen to our school and town community. Emma will attend Smith College to study biogenetics next year. Congratulations, Emma.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Okay, I'm just checking the score of the game because Mr. Fury asked me. It's 3-3 right now.
3-3.
Yes. So our next recipient is not here this evening because he's playing in a baseball game right now. But okay, so our next recipient is Breanne Parker Jr. Breanne is an individual whose determination, intrinsic motivation, and drive to succeed make him a CABE student leader, not only through his decision-making and personality, but also in the way he leads others through example. While Breanne is a quiet leader, he is the consummate leader, continually demonstrating the willingness and ability to take on new challenges, and has an amazing ability and keen insight that allows him to see the essence of a situation or problem clearly and then work to solve that issue. One of the many admirable qualities that Breanne possesses is his commitment to different areas of interest and how he consistently takes on opportunities that can shape the lives of not only himself, but of others as well. Breanne has taken on the responsibility of balancing being a student athlete and a student leader. Academically, he has enrolled in our highest level courses and is ranked in the top 20% of his class. Outside of the classroom, Breanne has been a change agent, advocating for his peers as part of the Student Council, Leadership Council, Young Men's Leadership, and Athletes for Action, just to name a few, all while being a member of the Windsor High School baseball, soccer, and track team over the course of his high school career. This is only a brief highlight of his extensive resume, but nonetheless, it is safe to say that Breanne has been an active member of our Windsor Warrior community. He will attend UMass Boston next year, where he will major in management.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ross, and I'll turn it back over to President Fury if you want any final words here.
Thank you. Again, congratulations to our award winners. It's a little unusual when I really know all four, or at least four of the families of all the award winners. I had nothing to do with any of that selection, though, but it's wonderful to see representation of many wonderful students that we have in our district. So again, thanks to all. The next item of business is the consent agenda. Oh, yeah, that would have been, sorry. Next item is audience to visitor. Ms. Daly, can you read your script?
Good evening. This is Robin Daly from the Superintendent's Office. If there is anyone from the public who would like to address the board, you may do so in two different ways. If you are using the Zoom application on your mobile device or computer, you may enter your comments into the Q&A feature located at the, located at the bottom of the Zoom menu bar. Or you may raise your hand on your computer if your device has a microphone by selecting the participant's icon on the Zoom menu bar and then clicking raise hand, or by dialing *9 on your phone. You will be given 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name and address. When you are called on, you'll be prompted with, "You are now unmuted." For clear communication, we ask that you do not place your call on speakerphone. No comments can be made against the employees of the school district or children outside of your own.
Thank you. And one further item, I know if people are here at the 2.5 mark, Mr. Lockhart, Vice President Lockhart, will raise a little red card. Now, obviously, if you're on the telephone, you won't see that card, but he'll mention voice over when he gets to that point, so you know when to start wrapping up. I'd like to start audience to visitor by anybody in the boardroom that would like to address the board.
Great chairs, by the way.
Thank you.
The reward for a good budget. Job well done. Don Trinks, 141 Grove Street. And I first and foremost wanted to commend and congratulate all of you on your budget and your budget process this year. I think it really epitomized what working together can get done. I mean, an overwhelming approval of the town budget, and a lot of that, I really believe, comes from when everybody works together. Town council subsequently left your budget intact, presented it to the voters with a 9-0 vote from the council, and again, you know, the numbers don't lie. It was overwhelmingly supported, and I think a great deal of that has to do with what came out of the board here. So you're all to be commended on that. Since it's a cordial evening, I'm hoping that when you get to item 10, it'll continue that way. I am here speaking on behalf and support of Becky Jacobson. I'm actually on the nomination commission for the DTC and supported her to be put forth tonight for you. You know, I think the main thing that we all look for in elected office is somebody's passion. And in the Board of Education, that is the passion for children and for success and for the, is this all right? Not that you guys want to hear it. but for the success of all the children. And I think you'll find that in her as a candidate. And again, I'm hoping we can continue this cordial, unanimous voting habits that you guys have started when it comes to agenda item 10 tonight. And again, I wholeheartedly support her in her endeavor. Some of you may remember her as one of the ones that got the Aquanic playground brought to the council's attention and put through. So again, item 10, keep the spirit alive, keep it moving forward, and let's support Becky. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in chambers who'd like to address? Come forward.
I'm out, I promise.
Tracy Peterson, 61 Willowcrest Drive. Mayor Trinks tried to steal some of my thunder here. Board Chair Fury, board members, Dr. Hill, Cabinet. I am here this evening also to speak in support of Becky Jacobson to fill the new vacant board seat. My support of Becky is not political, but rather both personal and professional. As an educator with over 25 years in public school education, I have always been impressed with the citizens who are willing and committed to serve in the volunteer role of board member. It speaks volumes to the deep connection and grave responsibility one must feel to the community in which they serve. I would argue Becky Jacobson is just that type of person. From the moment Becky joined the Aquanic School family, her presence was felt immediately. She joined our PTO and went straight to work, whether it was volunteering in classrooms or raising money for the newly playground that sits on the campus today. I would argue that she was also instrumental in nudging the town to prioritizing the parking lot project after our arrival, dismissal, and event parking had become a menace to our neighbors on Oxcart Street. Becky is a champion for students, teachers, ask any teacher who has children in her classroom, and families, always considering the impact any decision has on all stakeholders. She is a voice often for the voiceless. Most importantly, Becky loves Windsor and our schools. The work of the board means fighting to keep our schools thriving, safe places of learning. As citizens who are deep yourselves in the thick of this, I would argue there is no better partner to put in the trenches with you than Becky Jacobson. Whether you always agree or not, you will never mistake her passion for anything less than a love for our town. As a former student, parent, employee, an almost lifetime resident, there is no one, and many others I know would agree, those who could not be here tonight, would want more to represent our town, our beloved first town, than Becky. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Anyone else who'd like to address the board, please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Tebow, 2 Breakwater Lane. Thank you so much for all that you do for our town, first of all. I, too, am here to speak on Becky Jacobson's behalf, although I'll admit Tracy stole some of my thunder, too. But we'll go with it anyway. Again, my name is Stephanie Tebow. I have 3 kids in the school system here in Windsor, but I also serve as the co-president of the Aquanic School PTO. In fact, that's where I met Becky several years ago in her capacity at the time as secretary. And we both got very involved when we had some younger students. As she served as secretary, she clearly presented messaging and minutes at each meeting, keeping us to task, reminding us of projects, and the playground project has been brought up here already. That's something she continually instructed and advised the rest of the PTO members on when a lot of us really didn't have a lot of the information. So she was really integral in teaching us in some ways as well throughout that project. Becky is quick to lend a hand, not just in her volunteering with the PTO, but also for families and with those who maybe need an advocate in town. Becky demonstrates consistent dedication to the kids of Windsor. She is always involved, not just with her own students, but in the schools themselves. She shows a genuine care for what happens in our schools, and she's knowledgeable about the curriculum, teaching me a thing or two from time to time. I'd like to express my support for Becky's nomination to the Board of Education. I feel she'll be an excellent addition to your team and a voice for our community. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else in the boardroom here who'd like to address the board? Anyone else? Seeing and hearing none. Ms. Daly, is there members online or?
There are.
Okay.
Ms. Jacobson, you are unmuted.
Hi, this is Becky Jacobson. I am so sorry I am not here in person.
But I had this vacation planned for 11 months, so I'm here via Zoom. Hi, I'm Becky Jacobson of 50 Lighthouse Hill Road, and I come to you tonight as the approved DTC nominee to fill the vacancy on the Board of Education. I moved to Windsor in 2018 with my husband Jonathan and our 5 children. I was excited to participate in my new community, and the residents of Windsor immediately made me feel at home. This town is inclusive, diverse, and special, and I am so grateful to be a part of it. In the fall of 2018, I joined the Aquanic PTO with the goal of getting to know other parents. I was immediately welcomed and threw in my name for secretary of the PTO as a number of positions were open. It's been a wonderful experience in which I have gotten to know and work with teachers, parents, administrators, and students. I'm especially proud of the new playground up Aquanic and how it allowed me to collaborate with so many different people. The former Aquanic principal, Tracy Peterson, former superintendent, Craig Cook, town manager, Peter Souza, as well as numerous playground companies. Windsor is the place I call home, even though I wasn't born here, although I understand why people never want to leave. And because I love it here so much, I volunteer my time in this community. I'm an active member of the town's Human Relations Commission, where we work to assist all racial, religious, and ethnic groups in Windsor to drive a better understanding of our diverse community. My family attends First Church of Windsor, where the parishioners are always gracious to our family of 7, with 5 rambunctious children sitting in the left side and trying to stay quiet. We are active in the Windsor Little League, where my husband coaches 3 of my children, and you can find me working the concession stand at Welch over the next few weeks. One of my most informative experiences, however, has been working at Windsor High School. I'm a firm believer in being a problem solver, and when there was a string of fights reported before Thanksgiving, I walked into the front office and asked how I might be of service, as I knew Windsor High School, like everywhere else, was short-staffed due to the pandemic. The head of Windsor Public Schools security was there and told me that while it was nice to volunteer, he could offer me part-time work as a safety monitor. I started shortly before Christmas, and it has been an honor and a privilege to get to know the students and teachers at Windsor High School. Watching public education at work on the daily has fostered an even deeper appreciation for me of how amazing the Windsor Public Schools are. If voted onto the Board of Education, I will continue there on a volunteer basis because I enjoy working with the high school students. I know some may say I'm a passionate parent, perhaps too much so, as a listener on Board of Ed meetings and a frequent commenter in the audience to visitors portion of these meetings. The structure of these meetings doesn't allow for discussion between the public and Board of Education members, and if I am voted onto the board, I look forward to a more collaborative process with differing viewpoints and discourse from all sides. I know for certain that all the board members want the best possible educational experience for all Windsor students, even if there will be disagreements on how to do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Daly, is there someone else who'd like to address the board?
We do have one additional speaker. Ms. Lee, you are now unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Pardon me, my computer's being temperamental.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Nicole Lee. I live at 348 Merriman Road. I'm calling also in to share my support of Becky Jacobson for the open Board of Education role. My husband Greg and I both were born and raised here in this town, and we both went through Windsor Public Schools. I'm a realtor here in town, and we're both quite active in the community. And because of our love of this town and its community, we did choose to stay and raise our kids here. For 2 years, I was at the co-PTO president at Aquanic School, and I met Becky at the first meeting where we were actually building this board from scratch. She had immediately volunteered as secretary and was on the board with me for that for the remainder of those 2 successful fundraising years that I served while my kids were in attendance still. She was a contributing and well-respected member of that board. She was also instrumental in research and planning for the new playground for Aquanic School and in making sure that it was carefully thought to be inclusive of all children. She is a very present parent and always volunteering to be of help and volunteer when and wherever needed, which, included a number of different PTO events for the students, but also, for the teachers and the staff in the school as needed and also in those classrooms. I'm now a member of the Windsor Little League board, and as Becky has 3 out of 5 of her children playing and her husband coaching, she's constantly down at Welch and always willing to lend a hand, whether it's to, a family needing assistance with something or helping out wherever we may need it. So I do urge the Board of Ed to support Becky Jacobson in this role. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, Ms. Daly?
There are no additional speakers, and there are no comments in the Q&A feature.
Okay, without objection, I'm going to close audience to visitor. Audience to visitor is closed. Next item is the consent agenda, and are there any items that need to be pulled? Seeing and hearing none, is there a motion?
Move the Board of Education approve consent agenda items 4A through D, financial, enrollment, food service, and human resources reports.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made by
I'll second it.
Vice President Lockhart, seconded by Mr. Panos. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motions carries 8-0-0. Next item is the approval of minutes. Is there a motion?
I move the Board of Education approve the minutes of April 19th, 2022 regular meeting and the April 28th, 2022 policy committee meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Panos. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motion carries 8-0-0. Next item is the student representative report from Windsor High School.
All right. We're going to keep the ball moving. We are reaching the end of the school year, and the seniors are dragging their feet to the finish, but we are going. Senior outing is this week, and we'll be enjoying what looks to be the rain at Holiday Hill. Junior prom just passed this Saturday, and senior prom is coming up really soon on June 4th. We're all gearing up to be done with high school and move on to the next chapters of our lives into adulthood. The class of 2022 is almost out. That's it.
Thank you. Are there questions for our representative?
I
Ms.
wanted to
Cantor?
know Thank you, President Fury. I wanted to know, for your senior ball, where was it that you're having your senior dance?
I think it's at like the Marriott in Windsor.
Oh, okay.
I think that's where we're having it. I have no
And your senior outing is where?
Holiday Hill.
Okay. Right. Well, enjoy everything. And watch out for those crazy drivers on the road.
Now, we're hoping, even though you'll be a graduate, that you'll be coming back for our last board meeting.
Of course.
Okay?
Great. That's
course, I'm gonna be
wonderful.
there.
Otherwise, we'd all be saying wonderful things about you here, but we'll wait till June. Okay. The next on the agenda is Board of Education's part of it and the President's report. It's been a busy last month. Right after we had our April board meeting, we had the Social Emotional Learning SEL Showcase at Windsor High School, which was very well attended, and I know outsiders, folks from the state were very impressed. In particular, the student-led advisory example really blew me away of what our students can do. Kudos to what's going on here in Windsor. I spoke along with Dr. Hill and at the National Honor Society induction ceremony on April 21st. We had quite a large number, so, you know, again, kudos to the kids stepping up this year. And it's not just academics, it's leadership, character, service of what our students are doing, and it's great. It was a great evening. Staff appreciation breakfasts were held for the last 2 weeks. It was, I guess, officially 1 week of Teacher Appreciation Week, but we had staff appreciation breakfasts for 2 weeks, and I think I gained, I can't blame this on COVID. But thank you to the food service folks who were there every day, early in the morning. I know I saw Ms. Cantor and Ms. Skalinsky, Mr. Lockhart, and Mr. Wollaston at different breakfasts, so it was great. I think, unfortunately, Mr. Panos was busy politicking. I saw him at JFK, which is a school that he knows very well from the past, but he couldn't get away. He was doing his civic duty, a different civic duty.
I get paid for that.
I know, maybe next year I'll do that, geez. The next event I wanted to talk about was on May 11th, I attended with Dr. Hill again, Sage Park Middle School for the Technology Student Association Awards broadcast. It was actually taped, but students were finding out that night how well they did. And it's amazing what both high school and junior high school students or middle school students have done. We have 14 students between high school and middle school that have qualified for the national championship in Dallas, Texas, which will be held at the end of the month. And you see our school kept getting mentioned. You know, Darien, I think, was mentioned once or twice, and some of these other prep schools and things, but it's amazing what our kids are doing here, and the commitment, too, of the district for technology and what they're doing. And robotics is part of TSA, but it's clearly only one part. It really explores a lot of different areas, and students can choose what area they may be interested in, and with support of the staff. Initially, this program was middle school only, just several years ago, and we had about 20 to 25 students, because even with very motivated students, that's probably still what a number of, that a teacher can handle after school. But a lot of the students, when they got into 9th grade, said, why can't we continue this we've heard this program is also for high school students. So the district was able to expand the program, and now this year, we're busting at the seams, which is a wonderful thing to be able to do. And I'm very proud of the work of Ms. Hislop and others there at Sage Park Middle School. As mentioned by the mayor, Windsor Town budget was passed, and as stated before, we collaborated and voted 9-0, as did the town council, not to cut our budget. Ms. Batchelder, Dr. Hill, Mr. Lockhart, and myself presented to the board, and I think they were very impressed, and I think they were also happy with the amount we came up with, which was under 3%, thanks to our negotiating and going back and forth collaboratively with the board to do that. As of about a half hour ago, the Windsor baseball team is or was undefeated at 14-0. They were supposed to play last night, play Southington at Dunkin' Donuts Park in Hartford, but it got rained out, and there is no rain dates for those. So the rain date was back in Southington tonight, and that's why we didn't have Mr. Parker and his son present tonight for the award that Breanne Parker Jr. was receiving. And that's all I have. Any questions? Okay, thank you. Next item is liaison reports and Windsor High School. Ms. Taylor?
Thank you, President Fury. I have a lot, because usually they take mine, these two. Get ready, I'm going to take the rest. So much going on at the high school, and from now until the last day of school, from graduation day and even until the last day of school, there's just so much going on. So I'm going to try to go fast. There's the art and fashion show that's tomorrow in the media center. I believe it starts at 6:30, coming out for that. The choral concert was postponed, so that is next Thursday evening. And I want to congratulate all the Shad Derby ball and participants and all the Shad Derby court. Our own former student liaison, Taylor Flatico, was part of the court, and it was great to see everybody all gussied up. I had to miss it. I was at the convention for Democratic Party, but anyway. So I missed a good time. I'll be sure to be there next year. And it's great to see that the Shad Derby is back, and it'll be this Saturday. So come out and support all of our sports teams and everybody there. I don't want to get this wrong, so tell me if I'm getting this right, Dr. Oliver. Tomorrow, our 9th, 10th, and seniors are on a 2-hour delay because our juniors have testing. Okay, I said it right? Okay, I got some calls. There was a robocall that went out, but I just want to make sure that that we say that here because it's a little interesting. So if you see folks kind of milling around, I don't know, 9 a.m., it's for a reason. They're on a delay, and the buses will pick them up still. And last but not least, graduation is coming up, and congratulations to everyone going off to whatever you have planned next for yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wollaston?
I don't got that much, but I will say that I was blessed with the opportunity, as was Mr. Fury, to attend the Teacher Appreciation Breakfast at Windsor High. And it felt good to be able to appreciate some teachers that actually taught me. And, it's nice to be on the other side saying thank you. And to all the teachers throughout the system that we have here in Windsor, I just want to say thank you. You guys do a lot more than you really have to do, and you make change in our students' lives and in my life personally. So thank you, guys.
Thank you. Any questions for Windsor High School? Seeing and hearing none. Sage Park Middle School, Mr. Halleck.
Thank you, Mr. President. On May 6th, I attended the teacher appreciation breakfast. That was a great event for our teachers and our staff. I just want to thank them once again for all their hard work this year. I know it was a tough year, but they made it through very well. So thank you. May 25th is the music concert at Sage Park, and that will be at 7 p.m. And also a reminder that May 30th is Memorial Day, and there will be no school on that day. So that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Questions for Sage Park? Okay, moving right along. Clover Street School, Mr. Lockhart.
Thank you very much. It was good to be at the teacher appreciation breakfasts. I made sure I made it to Clover, my school. Also, went to the school yesterday to meet with some of the staff and parents and some of the PTO members regarding several issues that they want to share with the board members, myself and President Furies. And I personally shared those concerns with Dr. Hill, just to put them on his plate. But personally, I would like, their field day is on Thursday, May 26th. Rain date is Friday, May 27th. It is my hope, and I'm hoping DPW is listening. I would love for those fields to be mowed, prepared, and ready to go for the kids and the staff so that they can safely have a productive field day and burn off some of the energy that they got from being indoors. Other than that, that's all I got.
Any questions regarding Clover? Okay, thank you. Now, John F. Kennedy.
Thank you, President Fury. I attended the celebration for teachers at JFK. It was a great event. They were really happy to see everybody. It was so good to see everybody because I haven't seen people there since COVID. And I mean, it's been like 3 years close to it that I really got to see a lot of people. It was great. And it's just, it went by too fast. I think they really appreciated everything. I also celebrated Administrative Assistance Day with a lot of the schools too, and nurses. I recognize them as well for what they do to the town, for the town and all the people here and the parents. And let's see, they have a step up at Oliver Ellsworth on May 26th, so they'll be going, the second grade will be going to JFK for a tour. Field day is May 27th, the fifth grade picnic is June 8th, and the fifth grade promotion day is June 10th. And that is it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions regarding JFK? Seeing none. Ms. Galinsky, Oliver Ellsworth.
Great, thank you. So Oliver Ellsworth has and had a lot of exciting things going on. As we all know, we had Teacher Appreciation Week, and the PTO stepped it up this year, I would say, for them. They cleaned the staff lounge and stocked the fridge with food and drinks. They provide Chipotle on Cinco de Mayo for them, cupcakes. They gave teachers this really wonderful photo frame of their classroom, and for those special teachers that don't have that, they are being given yearbooks this year. And so it has been said that numerous teachers have come out and said that this was the best Teacher Appreciation Week that they have had, and even working at other schools. So that was super exciting to hear. They also had the Apex fundraiser, and that ended about 2 weeks ago. They raised a lot of money, and OE specifically took home over $11,000 to benefit their school. Yeah, I was pretty surprised by that too. And then a couple other really fun things going on is they had a yard goats game, and they had 250 tickets available. This was this past Saturday, and they sold out in about 3 days, I believe it was. There was actually a wait list for other families who wanted to go. They also have the Spring Carnival, which is this Friday, and then they also have Field Day June 3rd. So lots of exciting things for the end of the year.
Sounds like fun. Nathan, you didn't get to go with us. All the refreshments were there.
Had I known.
I don't know, he may request to switch schools, I don't know.
Had I known.
Last but not least, Aquanic School, Mr. Panos.
Thank you. I attended the May 4th PTO meeting. It's amazing how much they do. I was very impressed that they had an ending balance of $39,000. Maybe they could run the district here. It's amazing. They raised money. They had, for Teachers Appreciation Week, they offered one of the gifts for the teachers was doing a 10-minute chair massage session. And Principal Mahalko said they just loved it. This was pretty good. They're doing very well. The scores are up apparently from for the year. For the first graders are doing very well in their standardized tests where they're expected to be. They're up. So I guess academically, they seem to be making a lot of progress. The upcoming events, tomorrow they have what they call Lefties Cycles Bike Event. This is a bike giveaway and pickup for those who need it. Would come. The town is going to give helmets, bicycle helmets, and the kids are going to get the bikes. And so, for anything on wheels that you want to contribute, 5 to 6:30 tomorrow. And they're going to participate with the Shad Derby Parade, 11:30. So I'm going to have a tough time deciding whether I go with the Board of Ed or the PTO here. So, June 1st, on Wednesday, they're going to have their field day. June 2nd through 9, they have their book fair, where you buy one and get one free. And June 3rd and Friday, they have the PTO movie night, which apparently is going to be outdoors. So in just case the kids get a little bit too rambunctious, and so they need to take out some energy in the playground. So then the next PTO meeting is June 6th, at 6 o'clock in person. So there'll be, June 9 is, I think we already mentioned, Thursday, 5 to 6:30 at Clover Street is the Spring into Summer Picnic, and the farewell to the 5th graders and welcome to the 3rd graders. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Any questions regarding Aquanic School? Okay. Next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Dr. Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I'm going to first call up Ms. Danielle Batchelder along with representatives from DATCO. We've invited them per the request of the board. Thank you for joining us this evening. So we requested your presence, as I know Ms. Batchelder shared previously, and with the invitation, because there's been a number of questions throughout the year with bus delays or the lack of communication in some cases around buses. So I didn't know exactly how you wanted to proceed, but we figured it was best to have the company here so that we're not constantly going back and forth, which we've done most of the year, so they can answer the questions. And I know there were some board members here who have direct questions, so we have them here.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it'd be possible if I could start off with an introduction of what we've done recently.
Oh,
yeah, if you're okay with that, so just to give you an update on where we are.
Well, I'll
You okay with
leave
that?
it to you if you want to make a statement or you just want to take questions. It's up to you.
I thought I might answer some of your questions if I could just tell you what we're doing at this point first.
Okay.
So firstly, thanks for the invite. It's good to be able to express to you what we have been doing to try and improve our on-time performance. We have been looking at it very critically over the recent months. And we know it's critical to arrive on time and safely. That's the two most important things that we can do. We've generally been good when we monitor our on-time performance on the high and middle, but we really have struggled on the elementaries. We've managed to hit about 90% on time, and that's just not good enough. And for that, I can only apologise and then explain what we have been trying to do. The main problem we've had is we've lost a number of staff over the past couple of years. I think we all know there's been like the great resignation and everyone's struggling to get staff in. It's a common theme. So we have done a number of things to work on that. On the back end side, we've just purchased a new system to improve our routing and improve our ability to monitor. We'll be able to implement that this summer. Windsor is the first town we're implementing that in to try to resolve the issues. So that will be live for the fall semester. That's going to help us to monitor what's going on and react quicker and try and make changes to routes to try and improve them going forward. So that's one significant investment. It's not one that you actually see physically, but it's one that's going on in the background. Then retention. I've heard you all talk about appreciation. Retention is key to keeping us going forwards. So we really have been pushing on retention. Terry's been key in that in the depot. She's been doing a number of appreciation events and trying to make sure the drivers realise how much they mean to us and to all of you to try and make sure that they want to come back in the next year. then more importantly than that is recruitment to try and get the numbers back up again. So to give you a kind of picture, the recruitment, it really fell off for us during COVID, during all the time there's the additional payouts from the $300 payout. But it has turned around somewhat over the past few months. Since January, we've received 150 applications into our Windsor depot. That's turned around into 50 interviews. For 100 of those didn't meet our requirements for various different reasons or didn't make contact when we tried to reach out to them. Of those 50 interviews, we've got 13 have gone into the training field, and so far 2 have started. So that's the level of applications we need to be able to get a couple of drivers through into here, and that's our difficulty. So we're trying to get round that by really addressing our recruitment. We now have a dedicated recruiter to Windsor, so they're in there every day, following through on every single application and every single bite that we get. We've streamlined our application process to try and make it easier. We've been advertising on currently 12 different job boards. We've been paying on social media. Have various recruiting events. We've had a number of items on local TV stations. And then we have sign-on bonuses for new drivers with CDL licenses. We have, my favourite method of recruitment is referral bonuses. If one of our members of staff can refer someone in, then we'll pay them for that. I'd rather give the money to our staff than give it to some advertising board. And then the other thing we've done over the past couple of months is we've done more to revise our training process. We've always, obviously, had behind-the-wheel training in person, but during the times of COVID, we tried to take some of the other elements of training to online classes just to protect our staff and our applicants. We have now gone back to in-person, one-on-one training on all of the written tests. So we feel that that's going to help our process through the whole training. I'm open to any way I can reach out to members of the community to let them know that we're recruiting, because it's really the community we need to try and help us to get the people trained to come and drive for us. And if there's ways that I can reach out to the community that I haven't done, then I'm all ears, please. I would ask for your help on that. So that kind of just gives me like a couple minutes update on where we are, but we're open to any questions that you've got for us.
Well, thank you. I'm going to have, I think almost everybody on the board here is probably going to have questions because many of them have been living this as parents, as well as we're hearing it, those who don't have children, we're hearing it as well, because it's, and as you alluded to about the elementary schools, they're the last ones. So if there's a hiccup, and there's no hiccup in high school, the high school kids could be fine, but doesn't mean if all of a sudden Sage Park hits with a problem, middle school, then that's obviously going to trickle down to our youngest students, ones who may not understand why this is happening and the outcome. And I won't speak, because I'll be speaking at the end, but I'll go back and forth about questions people have. Anybody like to start? Mr. Wollaston?
Yeah, my question is just a fairly simple question. I just kind of want to understand what the process is of, what's the turnaround time on a training from the start of, just from the first training to getting a driver out in the field?
So when someone applies, then we can generally get through the interviews within like a week or so. But the problem then comes through in the length of time it takes the training. So it can take us 2, maybe 3 weeks for the driver to go through their application to get their permit. And that's classroom training and learning the different sections in there about students, about the general knowledge, about different types of vehicles. After that comes behind the wheel training. Behind the wheel training can take 13 weeks, 16 weeks. It was slower in the past because there was a hold-up getting their background checks through DMV. That has been sped up, but it doesn't speed up the people's ability to learn how to drive a big vehicle. And we train people in between home to school hours, and because it takes so long, they're coming through to us for like 3 or 4 hours in a day. Some of them can only give us 2 days a week, 3 days a week. Some people are coming to us 5 days a week. So the quickest I've seen on a training is really going to be 6, 7 weeks behind the wheel, plus the 2 to 3 weeks at the beginning. But more often than that, it's taken 3 to 4 months from start to end to get people through. And that does mean we have a large drop-off on that. That's part of the industry and how to get a CDL, and that's not a good answer, but our hands are tied. That is the process.
Just another follow-up question. Is there how many hours, or like what is the pay like for these drivers? Because the reason why I asked this question is I'm thinking, from my point of view, if I say wanted to drive a bus, what would be my incentive to continue through this training? Like you said, somebody may be coming in for 2 or 3 days. I'm sure that's their choice, but is there any way that you could perhaps like give an incentive to like maybe drive like some of the smaller passenger vans for AM or PM routes to lift the load?
We don't have STB here.
On
So-
some of the routes?
So we do have STVs.
Oh,
So
sorry.
the problem is, you still require the state letter, which is the background check, that takes the 12 to 16 weeks. You can only use it for one vehicle. So if we do fingerprinting and we get them licensed to drive an STV, which is a little silver van, which you're correct, you don't need the CDL, you have to then apply for another fingerprinting in order to go to the big bus.
They get paid less for an STV, so yes, it'll get them in quicker, but it's paid less.
Right.
It's, you know, it's not an easy solution. We have looked and tried in some places paid training, but because the training takes so long and we can't control that timeline, it's had very little impact. I would say it's really had zero impact on our retention. What we do when we get closer to them actually getting a license is we quite often pay them to go and ride on the bus. Before we do that, we have to give them like the student manager and the safety stuff, but once all those are ticked and tied, we can then ask them to ride on the bus to learn what it's like to be with kids and the whole process and learn the routes. We can generally do that like 2 to 3 weeks before the test if we have their paperwork in from the DMV.
Thank you.
Other questions? Ms. Cantor first.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. I have a few questions. The high school is the first school to be picked up for the students. So you already know at that point how many buses you have, right? You know at that point if you're short to come to the junior high, right? We don't get notification, and other families don't either, and they're, you know, voicing their concerns. They're like 40 minutes, 50 minutes late at times. Now, if the high school is the first school that they're dropped off, I don't understand why we're not getting notified and my constituents aren't getting notified. The school tells me they're not getting notified that the bus is late.
We have notifications that you're sending out.
And it's up 159 and heading.
Terry notifies by 5:30?
Between 5:30 and 6:15.
Not receiving, usually not receiving. Even today, the buses were late.
When you say late, though, because there's always the window, the 10-minute before and 10-minute
right.
after. And because like I've said in previous meetings, because we know certain buses are, say, the 20 minutes late every single day, we're now ranging it around that new time. So I just want to make sure when we say late, what is late mean?
Well, according to the schedule that you referred to last month, sorry, according to the schedule you referred to last month, it was updated. So, you know, if you're going to be more than 10 or 15 minutes late, you need to make a call. And it's not happening. So they're coming 15, 20 minutes later than the actual scheduled time, the new scheduled time. They're not meeting the time tolerance. Sometimes we get notified, most of the times we don't. And like I said before, in the winter and all through that, we weren't notified. And it went on for weeks, 45, 50 minutes, where children are waiting. They can't use their lockers in school, so that means they can't wear a winter coat because they can't carry it around with them all day. It doesn't fit in their backpack. So I'm just concerned why the school isn't being notified, or the school's not notifying us on all these times. And then I was wondering if you could change maybe the time for the high school, maybe to get there earlier. I don't know. So you won't be late all the way down the road for the elementary students.
So I looked at on-time reports, some on-time reports over the past couple days. We seem to not have a problem getting to the high school. We seem to get to the middle school on time. We seem to struggle a little bit more at the elementary school. I saw no buses going to the middle school that were 45 minutes late.
No, but the pickup time is late. It's not.
Yeah, what happens there, unfortunately, is that if we have to combine a route, if I don't show up for work today and Terry has to do the route, we send one bus out there, and maybe your pickup time and making up time here was 8 o'clock, because we're combining it we don't get to your stop till, say, 8:20.
No, it's junior high, it's before that.
I understand,
Okay,
but
7:25, and
Say we
it's,
picked up at 7:25, we may not get there till 7:40 because the bus is driving around town, so we didn't hit the window. So what we're finding is they're getting to school on time, but the time that's posted either out on the town website or on the route sheets are different. So when I look at it, I look at the kids getting to school on time. And we're not seeing that problem at the high school or the middle school. We do see it more of a challenge at the elementary school. And part of that is also fed by we don't use as many buses at the middle school level as we do at the elementary school level. Elementary school buses dictate how many buses the town needs, and the elementary school buses have far more children on them right now than either the high school or the middle school buses.
and also, the late buses are extra late now, too. They're running like 20 minutes later, 25 minutes later than what they were. They were last week and the weeks before.
To pick up or to drop off?
Pick up from the junior high to drop off at home at the end of the day, and we get no notification, and the school gets no notification. And we have appointments. People have appointments. They need to be to their appointments on time. They have activities, and I still feel that the bus company should notify the school so the school can let the parents know what's going on. People have work schedules. They're tied to specific timeframes too, and when they're not working, they don't always get paid.
We can work on that, especially on the late runs. I know in the morning we do notify, so I will, we'll talk to Danielle and Jen and figure out what's going on, but we are notifying when the buses are running late, because to your point earlier, we do know sometime by 6 or 6:30 how many drivers are coming in and which buses are going to run. So we put a list out every morning that says these buses are combining running late.
Why don't you then just, for the new schedule, where you adjusted the time, just make it a little bit later?
I'm not sure what you mean by new schedule, I'm sorry.
Last monthly Board of Education meeting, Danielle Batchelder, the lady sitting up in the front, told us that That's okay. She told us that DACO posted new times out there. So they redid the times. No?
We were, the buses that were continuously late, we were going to change that time.
So it's 10 minutes later in the morning.
But, so because I know you have this concern and you've had it, and I've researched it, and I've had Jen Hostein research it. If you can give me specifics.
I will, even today.
But like, if you can email me, because we keep researching your issues and we're not finding them.
We have a camera and we can see when it happens, and it has the time and everything. So I have a file and I will email all of that to you.
Okay, because and I know I've said this before, I sound like a broken record, but Terry sends this email by 6 a.m., the absolute latest, to all schools. So they're the principal and the main admin assistant, and then her, one of Terry's employees around 11:30 a.m. sends it for the afternoon drop-off, if anything changes from the morning, if someone called out. So there's 2 notifications that are coming from DACO that have been coming from DACO for months. So I am told by the schools that those notifications go out to all families of those buses. So somewhere there's a disconnect, and I'm trying to find it.
Right, and the school has all of our email addresses, our home phone number, and all of our cell phones. And it doesn't happen.
I know.
Sometimes we do.
I understand that. I just
Yeah,
don't.
sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. But the problem is when we have to be to work at a specific time, we can't leave our child, or we have to be working. And I just, I don't want to leave them out there. And I know other people are getting upset with it too, and I know it throws everyone's day off. So I will email everything I have to you within the next week.
Okay.
Okay?
No, that
All
would
right.
be
Thank you.
extremely helpful.
Thank you.
Next.
Mr. Lockhart.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wish to be very transparent. When we hired DACO, I was the president. I was a cheerleader for DACO. I was a cheerleader for DACO during the pandemic. I wanted to make sure we took care of your employees. Wanted to make sure that anybody that worked for Windsor Public Schools, that we took great care of them. And the public remembers that. So when we have this level of service, no matter what the description of that service is, it's concerning. I'm going to speak now personally about me because I can empathize with all the complaints that I'm receiving. My daughter's bus 25. Okay, that's Sage Park. I'm going to give you specifics. That bus is traditionally late. I am fortunate enough to be able to take my daughter to school. I'm fortunate enough to bring my daughter home because if I don't, that's a 20 to 25-minute wait. She missed the bus one day because she was so conditioned on the bus coming at 7:40, 7:45 that one day it actually came at 7:26 and she missed it. That's not good business. I get a lot of complaints about special ed kids. I get a lot of complaints about just Sage Park. I heard you mention elementary, but I'm now going to talk about Sage Park, to be fair. A lot of times those buses are either late or doubled up. I have a concern with doubling up, considering that we're still within a pandemic. At times, some of those kids are 3 to a seat. That's a concern to me. I understand as DACO, you have to do what you have to do to provide a service to honor the contract. I understand that. You have a business to run. As a Board of Education, we have a business to run, which is the business of education and providing a safe environment for all the souls on our campus and on our buses from the moment they leave their house to the moment they get back to their house. The buses has been a personal struggle for me. The buses has been a struggle for a lot of citizens of the town. I'm still a fan of DATCO, but I wanted DATCO brass to hear it from me directly, not through tape, not in the print. I want you to hear from me as a supporter of DATCO that it's been a very frustrating and disappointing year. I understand that we have labor issues, but at the end of the day, the parents that can't afford to sit there and wait for their child to safely get on a bus, and then now they have issues with their jobs because they're now consistently late. We recently just had testing at the middle school, and there was a big blast that went through saying, be rested, make sure your Chromebook is charged, get to school on time, and be ready to go. Some of those kids were rolling in late. I was at the breakfast at OE, the elementary school. We were there until a certain amount of time, and then when we left, there were 2 or 3 buses rolling in after we left the breakfast and school was in session. Kids run around, and you can't interrupt the work cycle. It's just not a good thing. So I'm imploring with you as a Board of Education member to DATCO, who I am going to honor our contract. I'm not saying DATCO, you, I'm saying we must do better for the citizens of the town of Windsor. We must do better for our children, because what we're doing right now is not working well at all. So at this point, based off what you've already told us, when we hit the ground running with the next academic year, we should never have these problems again. I shouldn't never say never, because you may have labor issues then. However, you understand now the struggles within the town of Windsor. We just renewed our contract with you because we value you as a partner with delivering education to our kids. I don't want to ever have to say, while I supported DATCO, I'm not sure now. I still believe in you. This is a great opportunity for DATCO to really turn this thing around for our citizens, but especially our special ed kids that are waiting if 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 45 minutes. That's just frankly unacceptable. We all are in the business of customer service. And who is that service to? To the taxpayers of the town of Windsor. And right now, as a board member, we are not delivering in this area. That's why I'm imploring to you as DATCO. Thank you, Mr. President.
It's fully heard.
I've been with this contract since it started too, and I've been to board meetings, and quite frankly, this isn't what the type of service that we've offered in the past and we really want to be offering now. We are dealing with a labor struggle, trying to hire drivers and get drivers in. We're trying our best. I want you to understand we're trying our best to get drivers, and we're trying our best to apologize to all of you and to the town of Windsor if it's not going as well as it should, but it's not from a lack of trying, it's not from a lack of desire, and it's not from a lack of understanding that children need to go to school. My wife is a teacher in another town. I completely understand your concerns, and we'll continue to work hard to solve this problem.
Mr. President, I accept that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Galinsky.
Great, thank you. So for those, and myself included, that are not familiar with how these bus routes are generated, Are all students given a bus route, or do they actually need to register through your system?
So they come in through the town, they have to register as a rider or a walker, and it depends upon where they live in relationship to the distance to the school. There's a walk distance to a school, there's a walk distance to a bus stop. So I'm not 100% sure what the exact number is in town, but everyone doesn't take the bus. There are students who walk.
Right, and so.
Jim, just so you know, so her child is at OE, so there's no walkers, and it's elementary. Okay, so go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So specifically that bus, I don't have my daughter take the bus, but I know that bus 25 is always going down my road and will stop to pick her up. But I don't ever recall registering, so I'm curious if there's a way that if parents know specifically that they will never have their child take the bus, can they be removed to help better those routes then?
Yeah, if you tell Jen Hussein, if you send it to Jen, she'll mark the child as a no transport, and it'll come off the route sheet.
And if we could do that, we'd much appreciate it, because then we can be more efficient in the routing.
Right, I'm just wondering if there are other families out there that are registered who know for a fact that they will never have their child take the bus, whether it's like the parents are driving to work and they're like, oh, it makes more sense for me to just drop my child off and then go straight to work, or if their driveway's too long or something of that nature.
So just to piggyback off that, because we've actually I've brought that to the board in the past, and the problem we find, parents don't want to actually say 100% they're never going to take the bus in case. And so we get stuck. So what DATCO does is, if if a student doesn't ride continuously, which I'm surprised the bus still stops at your stop, because that should have been, like, something like that.
I was too.
They would have eliminated that stop. So that's what we run into. They don't want to say, yep, never, in case something ever happens. But we will definitely look at that.
Okay, that sounds good, thank you.
Anyone else on this side?
No, that's fine.
Anybody else? I guess I get the last say. One, I want to thank you for coming here tonight to hear directly, because it's a topic that we've visited on several occasions. And it's not only the people on the dais here, but we're all hearing what's going on. And one question I have is, how does, and it's really for my own inquiry, how do we compare with your on-time service? I know you have a lot of other towns that are nearby. What's the percentage of buses in other towns that are late? I know we probably have a large geographic area to cover, maybe larger than others, so that may lead to more problems in Windsor.
Without looking at on time, because I haven't run it for all the other districts, but as the director of operations, so I have Manchester, Windsor, South Windsor, the Crack Yard, Bloomfield. I can tell you that the rest of the yards, with the exception of maybe one, are running every day 3 or 4 drivers short. And that, that's before people call out sick. We're seeing a spike in, I think we all are, we're seeing a spike in COVID again. We're seeing that gas prices are affecting drivers because they drive to work in the morning, then they have to drive home, they have to drive back, then they drive home. So I've heard some drivers concerned about that, but I would say that you're no different than other towns. But I'll be honest, I haven't run on time, but I just look at the number of drivers in every town. Unfortunately, we are running short in a lot of places.
We have 27 contracts, and there's one which is staffed correctly. Now, when I say that the others aren't, some of them are a couple of drivers, some maybe 4 or 5. But that one is paid very differently, and it's a different format required by the town.
So
it's
right
not
now in Windsor, you have enough drivers, if nobody calls out, right now you have exactly enough drivers to do all the routes.
Yeah.
On the-
Nobody calls
yeah.
out.
If nobody calls out.
Yes, and that's on an already reduced version.
And what, in the past, how many drivers above that requirement did you have?
We usually try to have a 10% spare factor, so if we have 50 routes,
Okay. You'd have 5. Okay.
Because we average probably 2 or 3 guys calling out.
Well, my hope is obviously that the recruiting, and we can all be cheerleaders for recruiting.
Please.
So if you have business cards, leave them with Ms. Batchelder. I think we'll all take a lot, so you may have to order more. I'm hoping, though, there'll be discussions between the school district and DATCO as we go through the summer of creative ideas. I'll be talking to other board presidents and saying, what are you guys, whether it's DATCO or another, what kinds of best practices are people, using, as Mr. Wollaston alluded to, more of the, SUVs where you don't have to have the CDL license? Are we looking at, as has been suggested, some longer times between high school pickup and middle school pickup? Or I'm sure there's other ideas that are out there, but we have, with, as you mentioned about COVID may be here, this may be it. I mean, we have a nurse here, she told me, we're just gonna have to live with it. So driving a bus may not be, even though you have a very good contract, employees are paid well, by the way, for those who are watching. They have good union representatives on their contract, because as President Lockhart said, we had to make a big sell of that contract. But we had the reputation already. We knew what DATCO could deliver and had delivered in the past. So, and I know we negotiated that, and we kind of spread it out a little bit so the first year wouldn't hit as hard as it could have. But I'm really thinking that there's opportunities here that we need to find ways of even may not be perfect, of finding better ways, and we do have a couple of months to try to get at that, and I'm hoping that it'll be collaborative. Ms. Batchelder?
Just to give you an example, too, of what we've done in the past that we couldn't do this year. So in the past, we've actually, some of our lunch monitors, we hooked up with DATCO, and they would drive for DATCO in the morning, come do lunch monitor for us, and then drive for DATCO. Custodians that work night would drive for DATCO during the day. We have that now. This year, because we don't have the bodies in our school, our principals are taking those lunch monitors and using them all day, helping for staffing. So that's just one example of how we've tried in the past that we had to stop this year, because we're suffering too on the school side, filling our buildings with staffing. So
We need watchdogs for
I know, right?
bus driving. Again, I appreciate you being here, but I know you've heard it from people here and others who haven't even spoken tonight, who's just been so difficult, as people alluded to, based on the children getting to school, on parents being able to get to work on time, and some people have a boss who's a little more lenient and understands, and other people, I know I've gone to some businesses and I said, "Is that your child there?" And they said, "Yeah, my grandpa's going to take him because I had to get to work." So again, appreciate you being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, DATCO. So I will go through my report, which people thought was stealing thunder. Like, I feel like my whole report was given by everyone. But I want to say certain parts for myself, just my own edification. So my cabinet members and I were pleased to see the budget pass. 1,290 yes votes to 339 no votes. So for the second year in a row, we were able to provide a reasonable budget with no negative effect on the children and families of Windsor. So as mentioned by the mayor and mentioned by President Fury, I want to say that again because I'm very proud of that. That was something that when I did the first budget, I was very cognizant of getting a budget to pass, getting a responsible budget, and yeses repeated referendums over the budget. Mr. Souza and I, we did our little barnstorming tour, I would say, for a week with our Windsor seniors. While there was not like gigantic crowds, I think the first one was the largest. I think it was beneficial for the seniors to actually come out and ask us questions about the budget. And so it appeared clearly over the 3 meetings over a week and a half that they were supportive, and I was very appreciative of that, and I want the public to hear that, very appreciative of that. And we'll continue to always look for ways to be responsible with the budget in the towns. I told them I'm the superintendent, but there is no benefit in my contract that gives me a tax break. I tried, but actually Mr. Sousa said I have to pay my bill even faster than everyone else in town, so I told him I pay the bill just like you, so I'm never going to do a budget that I'm going to have to take home to my wife and explain. So you guys, while I'm here, we all got it good. We're going to keep the money right. My next coffee talk is planned for Wednesday, May 25th at 6 p.m. in the LP Wilson Courtyard. Or of course, if it rains, we'll come inside. Please email Gianna Gill at ggill, G-I-L-L, at windsorct.org to RSVP. And on Tuesday, 5/10, on Tuesday, we attended the CSDE Teacher of the Year event. Due to COVID, this event had been delayed for 2 years. So this is actually a pretty special event that's held at the Bushnell. So the State Department of Education did an honoring for 2 years because it had been canceled due to COVID. So I had the pleasure of introducing Connecticut's Teacher of the Year for 2021, who was our own Miss Rochelle Brown from Aquanic School, and Dr. Monica Brazzi, who was escorted by Danielle Batchelder, was Windsor's Teacher of the Year for 2022, and she was a semifinalist for the Connecticut Teacher of the Year. So we almost had 2 in a row. We were right there. And Mr. Jay Mahalko escorted Ms. Maria Sau, the Connecticut Para-Educator of the Year for 2021. Added note, another point of pride, a number of my colleagues across the state pulled my coat just to acknowledge that they are really impressed to hear Windsor's name continuously and to see that, our staff was obviously being noticed at the top, so I'm very proud of that. We want to continue to represent Windsor that way. Just a reminder that graduation for Windsor High School class of 2022 is Monday, June 6th at the Bushnell Memorial in Hartford. Last day of school for pre-K to grade 11 students is Monday, June 13th, and it will be an early dismissal. Again, as President Fury mentioned, took some of my thunder, but I'm still going to say it anyway. So the mini SEL showcase held on Wednesday, April 21st at Windsor High School was a great success. The district has received many positive comments. The Connecticut State Department of Education will be making various policy moves around SEL, and Windsor will be the model for some of those policies. I'd like to thank Dr. Mallory, the SEL coordinator for Windsor, and his team of specialists for their great work. And I'd also like to say that Dr. Mallory and some of the SEL reps have also been on various Zoom panels and nationwide. So it's really the work that we're doing here in Windsor, and I will keep saying it's new. We're going to have our warts, but I wanted our district to be the district to go out front in the state of Connecticut. I like pioneering. It's dangerous work, but I like doing it. So Dr. Mallory and his team has taken on that challenge, and they are doing amazing, and it's being noticed by my colleagues across the state. And at this point now, we're moving across the country. So I'm very appreciative of the work that they're doing. We talked about the Windsor National Honor Society induction. Again, I'm going to, please don't take my report again, Mr. President. No. The Windsor National Honor Society induction ceremony was held on Thursday, April 21st. President Fury gave encouraging comments to the new inductees. I was pleased to announce the 3 superintendent awards given in honor of 3 previous superintendents. First, the Daniel Howard Scholar was Ryan Giannetti. The Dr. Earl S. Russell Scholar was Araya Miller. And the Paul J. Sorbo Scholar was Ms. Taylor Falatico, who was also our fall student rep to the board. So that was great. And as President Fury said, there were a lot of inductees. So, that just speaks to the work. I tell people, that ask me, those that I mentor, those that ask me, my students at the university, people wonder all the time about getting recognition. And I'm like, when you work hard, people are going to notice. You don't have to advertise anything. Just do the work, and people are going to notice. It's clear our students have worked, and they've earned the right to be in a National Honor Society. Large numbers, that doesn't bother me. Some schools try to say, oh, we only had 5 inducted because our students earned it, and I'm very proud of them and the work that they're doing. After 2 years of not competing due to the pandemic, again, our award-winning Windsor High School Music Department successfully participated in the Music in the Parks Adjudication Festival in Agawam, Mass. On April 22nd. The gospel choir, the jazz ensemble, and the honors chorale all came in first place with a rating of excellent. The honors chorale also received the overall choir award. The symphonic band received second place with a rating of excellent, and strings came in second place with a rating of excellent. Student Aaron White received the Outstanding Jazz Soloist Award on trombone. Congratulations to all our students and our amazing staff, Dr. Tracy White, Mr. Brandon Monroe, and Dr. Paul Pierce. I never take these lightly. I've said it many times over the years. When I was vice principal at the high school, the music department was under my watch, and I spent a lot of time down there. One, it was on the other end of the building, and so it was an escape, because I could hear great music. Either students could sing to me or play their beats that they created in our music studio, or I could listen to the band play. So I love our music department. I think they've been doing great things for a long time. When I came to Windsor in 2002, they were doing amazing things, and they just continue to do so. And even coming out of the pandemic, once again, they're just amazing. Another point of pride was the Technology Students Association Award Ceremony that President Fury spoke of. I can't say that I have more pride than President Fury, because I know how he feels about the whole technology program, so I had to give him that one. I just smiled when he mentioned it, because I knew that one was coming. So I won't repeat all that, but I was just so proud to see 14 of our Windsor students compete and place in the region. And so when they asked, Ms. Hislop asked, could we help support the students go to the national competition in Dallas? Of course, we're gonna send our students to the national competition in Dallas. I'm just as honored and just as proud of my students doing every kind of thing to represent our school district. So whether it's a team sport, technology activity, quiz bowl, academic bowl, schools match wits, whatever our kids do, I'm just competitive, I wanna win. So I'm looking forward to seeing the chess club grow over the years, because I wanna win. So maybe we'll have a Grand Master come from Windsor High School or Windsor Middle School, Sage Park, excuse me, and I'll be very, very excited. Also, I wanna plug that students who aren't connected to the Technology Student Association, please look into it and consider it for next year. Because one of the things that I also noticed while they were naming the award winners in the various categories, there were still a number of categories where no students competed at all, from Windsor or any of the schools in this Northeast region. So they just were untapped categories. So I think there's a place for every student to fit there. So we've had our DACO discussion. Next, I'll call up Dr. Oliver, Dr. Haiti, and Ms. Bonnie Feynman to answer a few questions that were presented to us regarding student performance. So I'll read the questions out loud to the board. So 3 questions came to me, and I presented them to my instructional services department. So how are students performing academically based on the usual metrics now in comparison to pre-COVID years? So we compare 2019, 2020, 2021. And did we receive an accountability report from the state this year and last? And is any testing on hold or removed as a result of COVID? So this is a very high overview of what's going on around those areas, so we're not going into great detail, so there won't be any individual scores or anything like that presented at this time.
Excuse me, is there going to be something that we'll get as a board, if not now, then afterwards?
We can send you some, but I told my team, so if I misread it, then that's all on me, to not present, not a presentation, because you told me a light overview, so I was like, I took it light to give you, but we can send you this information and put it together quickly. If the board wants a presentation, we can do that, but
We'll listen to the presentation.
you decide if you want to hear it after, okay, that's fine. But blame that on me, so go ahead, ladies.
All right, good evening. If I may begin, thank you. So thank you for the questions, Dr. Hill. As you might imagine, there are many layers to this question and by extension to our answer. We literally could spend the rest of the evening talking about data, but for the purposes of our superintendent's update, we will not. Instead, I will just provide a very brief update highlighting our pre-pandemic data. So our last full year was 2018-19 to our current status. But before I dive into that, just a few considerations for our board as well as our viewing public at home. There is no formal accountability report, and that is per the state of Connecticut's accountability waiver. So typically, the board would receive a report card, basically, showing our progress in areas such as academics, attendance, discipline, CTE pathways. However, due to the pandemic and the historic disruption, the state applied for a waiver, and the waiver was approved, which essentially means testing has occurred as normal, with the exception of spring 2020. And if you recall, that was when the whole world shut down. So that was the semester we did not have state summative assessments. But other than that, testing has proceeded per usual. The main difference is those results were not calculated as part of a district accountability report. So moving forward, we would expect to have that report. So for fall of next year, we should be able to come back to the Board of Education and provide a full data update of not only our state summative assessments, but also our district accountability reports. I just wanted to make sure that everyone is clear that we actually do not have a district accountability report to update you on at this time due to the interruption caused by the global pandemic. All right. So at this point in time, our state summative assessment window is currently open, which means that students are currently testing for our Smarter Balance tests in both ELA and mathematics, as well as our next generation science test. So again, business as usual. And in terms of comparison, so the question was, how are students performing academically based on the usual testing now in comparison to pre-COVID years? So when we looked at our Smarter Balance data, our next generation science data, and our SAT data, we looked at our overalls from 2018-19 and compared that to 2020-21, because again, we are still currently testing for 22. So that's our most recent data that we do have to share. And what we observed was, in terms of ELA, we saw a 5 percentage point decrease as measured by the Smarter Balanced Assessment. In mathematics, we saw a 12 percentage point decrease as measured by our Smarter Balanced Assessment. Science increased by 4 percentage points as measured by the Next Generation Science Standards Assessment. And our SAT scores, the mean score in 2019 was 959, and in 2022, we came in at 952. And when we looked at our district or our local measures, such as our iReady and STAR, we noticed similar trends in that we did observe a COVID slide. So while we were trending upwards prior to COVID, so for example, if you recall, our state accountability report had increased to almost 76, which put us above the state average and ahead of our counterparts in Windsor, Hamden, and Creek, and on par with districts such as Wallingford, Somers, and Newington. We know that this is not enough. So moving forward, our theory of action is to continue to press upon the importance of teaching and learning, and our hope is that that will result in sustained increases in student achievement. So basically, that's a very high-level overview of where we are right now in terms of our state summative assessment data, as well as our district accountability report.
So at this time, if there were questions from the board, we have.
Questions from the board, and I know the testing is going on now, so I'm really hoping whether it's a special meeting we have in September or October, we can really have an evening dedicated, because the main purpose of schools is for kids to achieve. So, and we'd want to see what the scores are, why you think what the scores are, what you're doing about always increasing. We always want to increase. So, but for the fall. So at this point, I'll look for questions from the board on your report, Dr. Oliver. Anybody? Mr. Panos?
Just on the schedule, when do you expect to have the results made public, at least to so the Board of Ed members could access them? Maybe that's a question, I've always been a bit annoyed how late they are, but I understand they give the scores to the districts fairly early, like June or July or something like that, but they don't release them, until September or something like that for the public. I'm never sure why.
Yes, that is correct. In recent years, we have received some of the test data in the summer. That information is also published publicly on the EdSite website if you're interested in, looking at our data. Yes, so there's the state of Connecticut, they have a data portal or a data warehouse, and you can find academic and other data points there for not just Windsor Public Schools, but for all districts in the state of Connecticut.
Well, I thought I was familiar with that pretty well, but I had to complain to the state a few years ago when I was looking for these things and why it was so late, and yet I knew that the districts had already received the data, and they had some reason that they were checking it out or something like that, waiting for something. So it may be available to you. I'm not sure that it's available to the public,
So
that EdSite, that's what you're
Right,
talking about,
right.
yeah.
I would
Okay.
just add, Mr. Panos, you're 100% correct. So it's not updated as fast as we would like. So when people say, oh, I saw this on EdSite, it is just under normal conditions. It's a little behind the way, as fast as in terms of how the state puts it up there, but it's been definitely much slower of late. So I don't know what reasons they gave you, but it's not, abnormal for the state to be a little behind the districts in terms of putting up the information and keeping it current. And I do believe, isn't it a year behind anyway?
Typically. So I would say if things are on schedule, we would expect to have data this summer, and then we would be able to come back to the board and present that information, and maybe even the district accountability report. But again, that's dependent upon when the state puts that out, because it's the state that actually does all the calculations. So it's not a simple calculation. It's based on over a dozen indicators. So, ELA, math, science, achievement, growth, chronic absenteeism. So it is a complicated measure, and so that may not be available to us well into the fall. But as we know, we will be sure to inform you.
Thank you.
In the SBACs that you looked at for these two, I guess that would be available publicly. But do you see any patterns, like what happens at third grade, which is, for literature, I guess that's a critical one, and say, or how they do in the third grade is kind of a predictor. Do we have any results on how they compare? The averages you get kind of very general, but what would be the scores for the third grade?
So we did not prepare a detailed report. So what we presented this evening were kind of our overall averages, but we can certainly break that down by grade level. And again, we wouldn't have data for 2022, but we could get you the data for last year.
Yeah,
ending in
but that would be all COVID affected, but it doesn't, the averages don't look that bad, as you say. I mean, just math is 12% down, I get, but,
Correct.
So, anyway, thank you.
Okay, other questions? I think Ms. Taylor had alluded to some changes in the bus schedule, because I think the next generation science standards testing was going on. So obviously, we're not going to have results of that anytime soon, since they're not even, haven't taken them yet. But thank you for the kind of overview, and I know we are interested in once those exams are back, to have something in the fall. And
Absolutely.
as I said, it was probably going to be a special meeting of the board.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Seeing none?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have curriculum, so we were just going to.
Oh, I thought you were like, yo, we up here, we saying something.
Nope, nope, we're just ready
sorry. So, Ms. Feynman and Dr. Haiti will now be presenting curriculum. I see. Do I give it to Ms. Taylor at this time, or?
No, I'm going to look for a motion for the next time. I wasn't really sure it was done or not, so they're still sitting there. No. I guess they need a place to sit. They're jumping the gun here. Is there, I'm looking for a motion regarding curriculum development.
Thank you, President Fury. I move that the Board of Education approve as a first reading Fire 101, Biology, Chemistry, Science, grades 6 through 8, Health 11-12, Individual Development, and Family Studies.
Is there a second? Motion made by Ms. Taylor, seconded by Ms. Cantor.
No.
No.
Ms. Galinsky.
Oh, I know. I looked at you. I was looking at you.
I raised my hand
Oh,
and she
okay.
said it.
Seconded by Ms. Galinsky. So now you're on.
Do we answer questions?
Yeah.
Usually we
Usually we
just
answer
answer questions. So any
Oh.
questions?
Okay.
No.
So the motion had to do with waiving the second reading. So if there are questions, really, we obviously can ask the questions now, but if there's some things that can't be answered, I'm not sure how the vote would then go. So at this point, are there questions from the board as to those specific items that were listed in 8A, which is not all of the.
Oh, okay, what's in 8A, curriculum, just these?
Yes.
Yes. Everything else presented, curriculum printed on May 12th.
Okay, let me just see here. I'm sorry, let's see, where's biology? This towards the end. Okay, 1, 2. Let me I think this was in there. There were some items in these from the new course created health for 11 and 12. The course items that are of kind of a sensitive topic, having to do with such things as guideline, growth, development, and sexual health, and building healthy relationships. This is just how good are we? Some of these items, I believe, are being sensitive topics. Students can opt out of this, or do they have to take it because they're taking the course? What is the story?
So according to the state of Connecticut status, there is some certain topics that parents have the option to opt out. So growth and development and sexual health is one of those topics. So this is Unit 2. So a couple of weeks before Unit 2, parents will receive a letter saying that this is what we're going to cover in Unit 2. These are the objectives. And if you choose to opt your child out, then please sign the letter and send it back. And at that time, we do pull kids out of the classrooms. They have an alternative assignment to work on while the teacher is working on Unit 2.
Okay, so
Yes, so this is in all our health curriculum from K to 12. There are certain standards that the state allow parents to opt out, and it's the same process that we use for all our grade levels.
okay. So it's adequate. It was one of the things that showed up last meeting. It was kind of it had to do with a book, that was assigned at the middle school, and the question was, about sensitive material. That it wasn't a health course, but it was a.
If it's taught within health, then parents will have an option to opt out.
Option, okay. So also, when they take this, I mean, are these? So when you're talking about issues of contraception, or whatever, that's not mine. I don't.
Somebody's objecting to the course, I guess. I don't know.
Someone,
opting
I
out.
guess. They didn't like it. That's not mine, is it?
No.
That was on purpose. Just a question, and we'll hold it up, but when to discuss these sensitive topics, are these co-educationally taught, or are they separated?
They're co-educationally taught.
They
So
are
we don't-
co-educational, okay. Yeah. It seems like it'd probably be a good idea to separate them. I don't know what the issues are, but this is, if you're talking about things like contraception, even if it's a voluntary affair, it appeared that just so because of the sensitivity, it might be a good idea. So anyway, I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Any other questions? President Lockhart.
Oh, Vice President Lockhart.
Oh. At least I didn't call you Dr. Lockhart.
Have it.
How many presidents we have?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I was an attendee to the curriculum meeting, but I was over the moon excited, not only for Fire 101, but I was very excited about the sciences, definitely biology and chemistry. I think I stated that in audience to visitors. I really like the way it's laid out. I like some of the new concepts that you're going to be doing, especially in biology. How you said you were going to be laying some things out, especially with the DNA, and, the visual, just bringing people, just engaging folks. I really, really enjoyed that. But, Mr. President, through you, I just want to say to Dr. Hill and everybody that Fire 101, I'm happy that you brought it to fruition so fast, but I'm going to have that same energy and excitement when we bring something for EMS, when we bring something for police. I just think that it just gives another avenue for people to look at, especially, when they turn 18, they leave our schools. Not everybody's going to college. Not everybody's going to the military. Not everybody's going to go into the trade. It's okay for you if you want to be a firefighter or a police officer or EMS at 18 years old. You're prepared. You understand exactly what you're getting into, and you're on track, and you know what you're going to. So I'm just thankful, and I'm looking forward to this coming, hopefully, and with our approval in the fall. And whoever's teaching the curriculum, I'm over the moon happy. Hopefully, someone will invite me into one class or two, and I can engage with the kids.
Oh, boy.
So I'm just excited about this. But we have the juniors in town, which is the fire juniors, but you also have the police cadets, and I'm looking for the same energy and excitement for that group of pool of candidates as well. So thank you so much for what you've done so far.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Taylor, then Mr. Wollaston. Oh, you're pointing to him, okay. Mr. Wollaston.
It's all on me, buddy. Just kidding. No, but as Mr. Lockhart was speaking, I just kind of got a random idea. I just wondered, I don't know, in the future, would it ever be a possibility if we had a similar course, or maybe a course possibly in the future that could be a prerequisite to a separate firefighter or EMS or police course, in which there's kind of a brief overview of all three, and then the following semester or the next year after you've taken this prereq, you branch off into the next part. That's just a little discussion, little suggestion.
I think that's a great idea. I think we'll definitely look into it to kind of an introductory course. So that will be like an additional pathway was under our CTE. I think that's a great idea and a great way to build because Fire 101 after this year will be just for 11 and 12 graders. So I think it will be a great idea to offer an introductory course 10 or 9th graders can take to kind of get a feel on do they really want to go into it or go into police or so definitely we'll look into it. Thank you.
Yeah, that is an interesting idea. I know in the middle school, at least when my kids were there, they would get a little bit of French and Spanish to kind of then figure out which one they might like to pursue. I know the ninth grade, for a number of years, we've had integrated science, where what used to be you'd go into biology, but now we start with integrated science, which, knowing that we're going to be doing next generation science standards by junior year, we needed to give a little boost up of a variety of areas. So that sounds like a great idea. It came from, no.
Hey.
on level 11.
Thank you very much. And you, Mr. Panos again?
I got to bother them with the, in the biology, which seems to be like following all of the sciences, they seem to be emphasizing phenomenon-based, I forget what they call it, they say phenomenon-based learning. I take it as kind of like projects or asking them to do models. You know, they're asking the students to do this. Now, you know, I see the, you know, so they seem to emphasize it as though this is something different than, you know, the traditional learning and exhibiting and being tested on the concepts, the general concepts. So it looked like there was a lot of emphasis on like projects, as opposed to as a shift. You know, there were always projects called labs or whatever you want to call them. You know, but it was always understood that in any particular science, you had to have a broad understanding of all the concepts that were available, and that you had to be responsible for them. And you know, I just saw this, you know, in the presentation, and I wonder if you could speak to that. I mean, this is NGSS new, you know, this is aligned, what you call it. Has there been some sort of shift away from testing towards simply projects?
All right, so phenomenon are not projects. So a phenomenon-based curriculum is where we show students a natural phenomena that happens in their world. So for example, a time-lapse video of a seed, and then of maybe like a whole year, 200 and whatever, how many days, and then students look at that video and kind of make predictions, or kind of they share their thinking as a class and as a group of what happened or what caused one seed to develop in one thing, and then in another environment that seed did not develop the same way. So they start talking about what they have observed in that video. So there are so many different phenomenon. So NGSS, the shift in NGSS is that it's not all about the content. So, you know, back before NGSS, we were teaching students like the digestive system. These are the parts of the digestive system. This is what it does to your body, and this is what you need to do to take care of it. Now, it's with the new standards, there are 3D. So there are 3 different dimensions on how you learn about science. One of the dimension is content. So it is, you need to know the content. Another dimension is the engineering practices, which are those skills that scientists and engineer uses, like, you know, deductive reasoning, looking at data and making predictions, looking at a chart and being able to look at trends. And then the third dimension is the cross-cutting concepts. Cross-cutting concepts are concepts that will follow with the kids from kindergarten to 12th grade. So things like patterns, things that we start teaching kids in kindergarten on certain level, but every single year with NGSS, students see the same cross-cutting concept just on a different level. So that is really the shift with NGSS, where we're not just focusing on the content, we're focusing on those real life skills that students will need, and we develop them through phenomenons, through looking at different things that happen around us in our environment, and having students start using their critical thinking skills to identify what might be the cause. And then they study the content throughout the unit, and then they go back to the phenomenon. If they have developed a model, for example, they go back to it at the end of the unit and then start talking about, was my thinking correct? Did I learn something new throughout the unit to make me change the way I thought about this phenomenon at the beginning of the unit? So that is really the new shift with NGSS.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Taylor.
What I loved, and you just struck my my brain because my audio was off during the meeting, so I couldn't share. But I was so excited because I'm not a science person at all, never was, not even at Windsor High. That's why I was an English major. Shout out to Bonnie Feineman. But but I was like thrilled to see the fact that it's like we're transitioning into from okay, shooting out this is what the answers are, this is the question, this is the answer, and students parroting it back, but we're diving deeper to the why. My son's in the 4th grade at JFK, and I'm seeing this happen in real time at that grade level. He did his report on all about bees, and I had no idea he had done so much research about the bees until we ran into a friend of his in his class and said, he did so great, and he knew his data and all this, and I'm like, really? I'm like, oh my gosh, and I had no idea. So this is going on, no, for real. This is going on at these levels, and then you come and in everything that you shared about sickle cell. I have the trait, and I just think that it's going to be so dynamic what the students can figure out with this that goes beyond the actual, the curriculum here. They're going to be able to translate the way of thinking into the classroom on the college level. Like everything that you stated, I swear I did my freshman year in college, and I'm glad we're not waiting to flip the switch on their brains to actually do the interactive things, because that's what's going to resonate. We can teach to the test all that we want to. They're going to forget about it. I promise you they will. But what they won't forget is how they were able to break it down in small groups and figure these things out. So hats off to the team. I'm very excited about what's next with this right here.
Thank you. And I just want to share, like we were talking about the NGSS assessment. So now the NGSS assessment is really not about the content. So it's very small amount of content, but it's if you are able to read like data charts, if you're able to read graphs, make predictions, make assumptions, pull evidence from a chart in order to write your explanation to whatever you think it is, even if it's not correct, scientifically correct. However, if you're able to explain your thinking from the data that was given to you, that these are the critical thinking skills that we want our kids to, they call them transferable skills, because these are the skills they need to be able to transfer them into life and beyond. And that's really where we're making that shift. We've approved our K-8, our K-5 science curriculum past couple of years, and now, seeing 6-8, biology and chemistry, making that shift. I think, just in a few years, our kindergartners who started with, our NGSS curriculum, just watching them grow, I think it will be just amazing to see that cohort of students.
Thank you. Ms. Cantor.
Thank you, President Fury. I just wanted to say thank you. I'm a registered nurse. I love biology, anatomy and physiology, chemistry, pharmacology, all of it, and the whole health is involved with that. And when you think critical thinking every day, it's in your life, you will succeed and you will invent things, and you'll get so much more out of it.
Definitely.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing and hearing none?
Mr. President, are you open to a substitute motion?
Sure.
I move, where is this? I move that the Board of Education approves as a first reading Fire 101, Biology, Chemistry, Science, grades 6 to 8, Health 11-12, Individual Development and Family Studies, and waiving the second reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to substitute motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Ms. Taylor. Any discussion?
Ms. Taylor.
You want to?
Seconded by Ms. Taylor, right?
Yes, seconded by Ms. Taylor.
Okay.
Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motion carries 800. Next item,
I'm up again. I move the board approves the text Ways of the World, A Global History with Resources, 4th edition, as presented, suggesting, should I suggest it? That the second reading is waived.
Is there a second? Ms. Galinsky. Motion made by Ms. Taylor, seconded by Ms. Galinsky. Discussion? Questions to our staff that's here?
Yeah, just give us a
Mr.
little,
Panos?
could you tell us about the process of selecting this particular text over others? I know, I guess this does not, this is not the same series as we currently have, but you had others, and could you go over why this one?
Sure. We have Mr. Bill Spalding, who is our AP, one of our AP World History teachers, who was involved in the selection process. We actually have him available virtually for the discussion. So hopefully he could hear that question. I'd love to pass it to him. He can explain some of the more nuanced aspects of that better than I can.
Thank you, Mrs. Feynman. I'm not sure how to turn on the video, but I'm here. And thank you, Mr. Panos, for your question. The text selection process occurred last spring. We looked at 5 excellent texts. They all had strengths and weaknesses. The one we selected to replace the current text is a superior text in a number of ways. The current text is not acceptable to the AP board at this time. It's out of date, and they don't offer a new edition of it. The author decided not to revise it, and so that meant that we needed to make a new text. And the text we've selected is one of the texts that I've actually returned to a number of times as a secondary reference over the years. But that's not why we selected it. We looked at the features in its coordination with the new advanced placement syllabus that is set by the College Board.
Yeah,
So just to reiterate what Mr. Spalding said, we had no choice but to look at new texts for this course because of the College Board and their requirements for AP World History. We're lucky that we have some very experienced teachers within the department, including Mr. Spalding, who were able to do a very comprehensive review of the different texts and narrow it down to 3, and then eventually to this one. It's a comprehensive text. According to the committee, I have just some things I can share for the public. It has embedded maps that are easy to read and well annotated. It uses images, figures, and presentation, includes data. As Dr. Haiti just talked about, that's an important facet of any aspect of learning, is to be able to read and analyze data and apply it, respond to it. There's relevant source materials in this text, et cetera. So there were a lot of advantages and only a couple of disadvantages, including the substantial size and weight of the text, maybe posing a little bit of a challenge to some book bags, backpacks. But otherwise, the group did a thorough investigation of the options, followed the board procedures on that, and put forth, I think, like I said, a really comprehensive look at this particular text and the other ones that were available for review.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
It's available for review if you have it in the office.
Yes,
over here.
the thing is, we actually tried to have one available. We're not able to get it. The company, we asked for the subcommittee meeting. The company would be willing to provide temporary passwords for everyone to get on and look at it digitally. They were not totally keen on that, but I believe Mr. Spalding can, right, Mr. Spalding, you do have a copy of the textbook that could be available for review?
Yes, absolutely. We have 2 copies that I could bring over to help you listen tomorrow, if you'd like to review.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure, that would be fine. No problem at all.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes, Vice President.
I wish to offer a substitute motion just to keep this process clean. The word suggesting was made with the original motion as it was presented to us. That word should be with. So with that being said, my substitute motion is that I move that the board approve the text, quote, Ways of the World, a global history with sciences, a history with sources, 4th edition, end quotes, as presented with the second reading waived.
Is there a second to the substitute motion?
I'll second it.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Mr. Panos. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motion carries 800.
If you don't mind, Mr. Fury, I just want to say thank you to Mr. Spalding, who's up at 9:15. He really did put a lot of time into preparing to present to the subcommittee and to be available tonight, and he's just exemplary, as are so many of our educators, and really, basically shows us what all of our teachers do for the district. But thank you, Mr. Spalding. I really appreciate all of the time and everything that you put into this process. I know it means a lot to you.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, item 8C. Is there a motion?
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
I got two motions for you. The first motion is I move that the Board of Education approve revisions made to Policy 5113, Student Attendance and Truancy, Policy 5114, Student Discipline, Policy 5125, Confidentiality and Access to Educational Records, Policy 5131.6, Drug and Alcohol Use by Students, Policy 5131.62, Windsor Athletic Department Use of Tobacco, Alcohol, Drugs, and Performance-Enhancing Substance, Policy 5131.911, Bullying Prevention and Intervention, Policy 5145.1, Student Privacy, Policy and AR 5145.4, Non-Discrimination Students, Policy and AR 5145.5, Title IX of Education Amendment of 1972, Prohibition of Sex Discrimination and Sexual Harassment Students, as a first reading and waiving the second reading.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Second by Ms. Cantor. Discussion or questions?
Yes, Mr. President, this meeting was on April 28th. The majority of these policies have been, the stack was piling a little bit due to COVID. We finally had a chance to have a policy meeting, and a lot of these were recommendations that have come down through either actions by the Connecticut General Assembly and/or recommendations coming from Shipman and Goodwin. These were discussed at length. For the board members, there's an extensive status that's about a whole page that will tell you in great detail why each of those units are being revised this evening. All but number 7 is for this particular motion. Number 7 is for the next motion, just for clarity.
Any questions? Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motion carries 800.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I move that the Board of Education deletes policy 5141.3, health assessment and immunizations, as a first reading and waive the second reading.
Is there a second? Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, second by Ms. Cantor.
This is to be removed.
Yes, this was one that we found that it was, at the policy committee, was not applicable. It was an error.
That is correct.
That was verified by Sally, too. That was verified by Sally Brown.
Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motion carries 800.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for jumping into the policy when someone left the policy committee.
Yeah, she did, on record.
Oh, boy.
Someone in here, in this room.
I see it.
I told her she had to come here. Committee reports is next. Ms. Taylor, anything further?
I think we have exhausted our time.
Finance Committee, Mr. Lockhart.
Nothing other than thank you for the citizens of the town of Windsor for approving the town budget through referendum.
Long Range Planning Committee, Mr. Wollaston, I know you had a meeting.
Yes, we had our meeting this past week. Chaired my first meeting. Pat myself on the back for that one. It was a great experience, but we mainly spoke on two things. The first thing we spoke on was the necessity and possibility of universal pre-K. We initially thought it would be something that we could do because the Build Back Better bill, but it didn't make its way through the system. So we just held a conversation and a discussion, speaking on the importance and the future possibility of it one day being a part of our budget, but there was nothing conclusive as of right now. And for the firefighter and vocational pathway discussion, we there wasn't much discussion on it because most of us, well, all of us came just from the curriculum committee's meeting, and most questions were answered there. But one takeaway that I had from our discussion that wasn't necessarily spoken of in the curriculum committee meeting was that, I'm not gonna misquote you, all right, but that our superintendent, he said he wasn't extremely persuaded that the vocational pathway should be heavily included in the elementary school levels because, yeah, at the early ages, because we don't want to feel like we're pressuring kids to be forced down a certain track, even though some of these skills and things could be introduced in a, like David many times says, like a Lego building kind of way, or just lightly introduced instead of trying to, you know, factory our kids into a suit and tie or into a hammer and make them workers in first grade. But overall, it was a pretty good meeting, and we got out by 7 o'clock, man. Come on.
Questions about long-range planning? Mr. Panos.
What particular study work are you expecting to do with regard to the pre-K, you know, complete offer? Are you going to, I mean, we've talked about this a few times before, and one of them is the evaluation of this. You know, we have to, you know, balance the value. Is obviously, you know, there's value to many, but is it a value overall? The question for the board to take on for anyone, I mean, is to take over someone's, you know, their own, you know, they already provide, you know, for that matter. So the question is, what is the long-term effect of these? You know, what are the long-term benefits for this? I think that's the question. Is you know, by the third grade, by the fifth grade. So maybe that should be part of what you examine, and if you come back and there's really you know, a positive effect on it, well then there's a reason. We have a group ourselves, don't we? And so there's a lot of places that can be looked at, and of course there are many districts have had these things for many years, and so not just in Connecticut, but in Connecticut. Anyway.
And I think Mr. Lockhart had alluded to the fact that we often lose some kids where they can go to a CREC school and start at preschool. If they get in, usually it's competitive to get in, but if you get in, then often parents may be reluctant to switch them back to Windsor schools, and we're paying for those CREC slots. So I think you're right, that there's been enough information out there about, and I remember doing this, and you may remember too, when Russell Sills was here with FRC, of looking at, how do our kids compare who go to preschool compared to other preschools that may be out there, or homeschooling and the like, so that we know whether or not, yes, if a kid comes into Windsor schools as a preschool student, yes, you can tell in kindergarten or second grade or third grade that they had some boost, and it may not be an academic boost, but it may be just, kind of character development and relationships and learning to share. I know many kids through COVID have not been going to programs because parents haven't wanted them to, when they have that luxury of not sending them to either a daycare or a preschool or some other institutional setting. But I think for this meeting, I think some of this was cut short because one of the questions Vice President Lockhart, but President Lockhart maybe at the time, had talked about was looking at our school buildings. And I had an informal discussion with Dr. Oliver to say, is there room at Pequannock? I said, I assume there's no room at Pequannock or Oliver Ellsworth. And she says, you're right. So currently our buildings could not support, if we wanted to, if for some reason, manna from heaven, we had all this money situated from the state, could we do it? Which still begs the question of, should we be using the money for that? Is it a good bang for the buck? Is it a worthwhile investment? So I think some of these questions will be down the road. This was kind of a kickoff meeting that had different components, and the thunder was stolen, luckily, and I thank, again, Dr. Oliver for pulling the fire course from the long-range planning and putting it into curriculum, and then for Windsor High to be announcing to kids, you can change because they were already in the process of signing up for next year. You consider this and adding it for next year for 10th grade as well, to jump the gun a bit there. Ms. Cantor.
Thank you, President Fury. I would like to see the study too, because I like to compare and contrast data, and that's what I do for nursing. Certain things I compare and contrast and see the benefits. So I would like to see a study done.
Okay.
For third grade, fifth grade with.
And we can, again, we can go through long-range planning and figure out exactly, send your questions to Mr. Wollaston of what, so that we can come up, whether even at the next meeting we come up with, or Mr. Panos, Mr. Lockhart and I can talk at the next executive committee about exactly what we might be asking for, so we can formally ask for it in June, but not for June, but for the future. Well, budget passed the first time, so you guys should be, have a lot of time this summer.
A lot of energy with that. I have a lot of energy.
Mr. Halleck.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to touch on the pre-K and possible grants. I think grants are great. However, we do know that they do eventually run out, and that's something. And a pre-K program would have to go into our budget eventually. So I think that's something that we have to keep in mind as well as we move forward in this discussion as well. That's all I have.
That's a good point, and I agree. And I'm hoping that between the state legislature and the federal government, it becomes not a grant, but a guarantee. And you're right. If it's not that, what happens if the sources are turned off? But even as we talked before about SEL, if SEL, we have 9 staff people assigned to SEL. If we believe that this is something we need to do, Dr. Hill has to be creative when he comes in with his next budget to say, how do we continue that past the time of COVID federal funds? Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Wollaston.
Yeah, I was just going to second your comments about it being a financially better option in the long run, because you never know what tuition from the other schools that we send our kids off to will be looking like in the future. And it's easy to say we're just sending them to preschool, but oftentimes it turns to them staying in the systems and going through the ranks, and for their entire school career, that's what they're costing us. But even more important to that, I think we're here to serve our community. I think universal pre-K is just one of those things we can do to say, hey, we're sitting behind this board and we're thinking about the community because we're here to serve.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none. Next item is the Policy Committee. Anything further, I guess? Mr. Locker.
Mr. President, no, thank you. Thank you for auditioning me for the chairmanship of policy. But it was a very smooth, I believe it was, 70-minute meeting? And we powered right through it and got everybody's questions answered, and it was slow and deliberate, but it was quick. So thank you for allowing me to chair, sir.
Yes, thank you, and thank Ms. Cantor as well.
You're welcome.
The next item is replacement for Board of Education member Miriam Khan. Is there a motion?
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Lockhart.
I move the Board of Education elects Rebecca Jacobson to serve the remaining term of Miriam Khan or until the next general town election for the members of the Board of Education.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Ms. Taylor. Discussion? Mr. Lockhart, do you want to go
Yes.
first as you made the motion?
Just as an overview, you've heard the several individuals come out to support Ms. Jacobson tonight. Many of the talking points that I had to support her nomination was spoken this evening. The DTC, she did go through a valid process of our DTC, approved by the DTC for consideration of this board. She has been in town since 2018. She has volunteered in numerous capacities, especially up at Aquanic. She has all 5 of her children within the school district. She's definitely active during the summers, especially with the softball league, baseball. And she's well known for her interaction with the Aquanic PTO, as well as the slide project up in that area. So it's my duty on behalf of the DTC to present her name into nomination for consideration by this board.
Thank you. Other discussions? Mr. Panos?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Notwithstanding Ms. Jacobson's, services that were described by those who supported here tonight, I believe that she has done good works for the PTO, as PTO president, co-president stated. However, the function of the Board of Education is to be a deliberative body, and the question is what is required to make a good Board of Ed member. It's a deliberative body in which the members are supposed to consider matters brought to the board by other members as well as the administration. Board members must have to be prepared to offer logical analysis of programs, curriculums, policies, practices that we already have, as well as those that are being proposed. If all we do is go along with what is presented to the board by the administration, then we're not doing our function, or we're not offering constructive advice to the administration to correct any problems. We know that we have academic and behavior problems, and not just the many successes like we saw here tonight. However, Ms. Jacobson has made several times remarks at audience to visitors, and in her remarks at the board, she has shown that she has no patience for views that she disagrees with, and is dismissive of the value of discussion itself and of deliberation. She's complained about it repeatedly, and she has short, tolerance for opposing viewpoints on issues that are brought before the board. Many ideas are introduced in education that are confusing and appear to many of us to have no connection to education, indeed to be detrimental to it. And it's important that we try to understand how such concepts work as they are now being used in education. There are, after all, many of these commonly used words like diversity, equity, inclusion are already in the language, and so when it's important for us to try to understand how they are actually being used. And the discussions by the board members to understand what these many concepts mean are very appropriate. And so at times it's difficult work at times, and it can be emotionally trying. You cannot be a person simply dismissive, as we've seen, and indeed even towards a previous visitor person at the last meeting, did not show much understanding of what they were saying. To be on the Board of Education, and even Cabe will make this point, she would have to calmly listen to opinions that she has been led to believe are wrong. Now, it's a trying thing. We know it up here, and I know that, with the arguments I've had with Mr. Lockhart, with over the years and others, it's a discipline. And so you have to be ready for that discipline and not just allow your emotions to take over. Even if a majority would vote with her, she would still have to patiently listen to the arguments and should be willing to calmly and logically answer them or accept the reason. So you have to do that. If somebody makes a good point, and so, but I believe that she has shown that her remarks to the board at audience divisions, she cannot stand to listen to opposing opinions. And I've really never heard her make a logical argument, for it simply states things. So there's not a good reason to join such a body if not willing to do this. So I would say that this is not someone that we should support for this position, at least on this side. And those are my thoughts. I will not be supporting her for election to the board.
Ms. Taylor?
Thank you, President Fury. I'm the only person up here who's ever been in a position that Rebecca Jacobson is in. I was appointed to the board in 2018. I'm sorry. You. You're
the most recent.
Yeah, I'm the most recent. And so I can speak to what that's like to transition from being the only parent in the audience, because this is before Zoom existed. Sometimes being the, the Mr. Madison or the Ms. Jacobson of all parents in Windsor, sharing whatever is going on at the time that, that we kind of had questions about, whatever the case may be. I was that parent. I know what it's like to transition from being an engaged parent to the dais, and it's not easy. You all are not easy. The cabinet is not easy. Dealing with parents when you're at Target and they've got questions for you like you run the district is not easy. But what I see in Ms. Jacobson that I also saw in myself is that you're not waving your hand that you have to do this. You're called to do this. It takes a lot of doing to do what we do. We do it for free. There's a lot of people think that we're paid to do this. It's the most challenging board I've ever sat on. It's the most challenging volunteerism that I've ever experienced, but the reward is beyond anything that I could explain. Ms. Jacobson is a parent of 5. And even as a parent of 5, she saw a challenge and also an opportunity at the high school when some people just complained on the bulletin boards on Facebook. She could have just said, you know what, I'm gonna complain about it and not do anything. But she showed up to volunteer and was able to get a part-time position out of it. That's amazing to me. The definition of the word logic, I guess it depends on who you ask what that means. Her viewpoints may not be logical to some, but there's a lot of people that I share the dais with that I don't think is pretty logical. But I would never say that in a negative way. We agree to disagree. We have really interesting conversations in front of the cameras, and we have some really interesting conversations behind the cameras. You can't complain about something without actually doing something. And you also can't compare a parent calling into audience to visitors to share their thoughts when we can't speak back to them. There's no give and take. So you can't compare something like that to an actual conversation. I am a part of the DTC. We stand behind her with this decision. We know that she is passionate about this town, the children in it. And when you're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, I am a diversity, equity, inclusion professional certified by Cornell. I know the definitions. She walks the walk when it comes to making sure there's equitable education, not just for her kiddos, some of which who are neurodiverse, but she's also thinking about that student that maybe isn't the squeaky wheel. She's an SEL professional. She's dedicated to her craft when it comes to everything that she does with volunteerism. She's the first to say, hey, what do you need? And she's a friend. I'd be remiss if I didn't put that part in it, because oftentimes we forget that all of us up here are human. We may have said some things up here that we probably might regret, but we don't hold that against each other for the next board meeting. We enter the room, we share the space, and we respect each other. And that's Rebecca Jacobson for me. She has my full support. I miss Miriam, I really, really do. And those are big shoes to fill. But Becky Jacobson is willing to volunteer her time to do that. How dare we deny her? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to? Mr. Walston, I don't see any hands up here yet.
To piggyback off of Ms. Taylor, the only thing we can accuse Becky Jacobson of or deem her guilty of is caring too much or being too involved or having a big heart. When I walked through Windsor and I did my few tours that I've done over the year, she was a face I've seen on multiple occasions while having just the interest of someone who cares, just the interest of someone with a big heart, just the interest of someone who says, there's something wrong, but I think I can do something to help, so I'm going to try. And I think that's all why we sit here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? I'd like to read a statement that was submitted. I did share it to board members, but I've been asked to read it. It's from Lisa Bress, who is a longtime educator in Windsor, as well as the deputy mayor. Dear board members, I'm writing to you in support of Becky Jacobson's candidacy for Board of Education member. I believe she would have a great deal to contribute based on her experience as a community volunteer, mother of 5 children in the Windsor public school system. I first heard from Becky in June of 2020 when she sent me an email to ask how she could volunteer and serve her town. I sent her a link to boards and commission vacancies. She immediately applied for the Human Relations Commission and has been an active and valued member ever since. Her work with the commission has fostered understanding and respect among various racial, religious, and ethnic groups. She has devoted a great deal of time and energy working to present community-wide programs that strive to eliminate prejudice and discrimination and provide equal opportunities for all. Becky is passionate about education and meeting the needs of students with differing abilities. She advocated before the town council, asking that additional equipment be added to the Aquanic School playground plan. This was to ensure children with special needs could have the greatest level of participation. She achieved her goal and then continued to volunteer her time in Windsor classrooms whenever she saw a need arise. It's important that voices like Becky's be heard on our Board of Education. She has the courage to speak up for children who are often forgotten or ignored. I ask you give your vote so that she can continue to be an advocate for all of Windsor's children. I'm also support of Becky for the opening, and I somehow echo Ms. Taylor's statement, and I look at two board members. Who's in the audience tonight who don't have to be here? We have two people who ran for the town council and the Board of Education. And they, even though they did not get on, they didn't say, oh, we're not going to be involved. Oh, people didn't want us. They stayed involved. They come to coffee chats. And as we know, sometimes more than Dr. Hill comes to his coffee chats. And they participate. And, you know, and they don't just come to board meetings. You know, a couple times I've seen them with their, Mr. Madison with his students, and I've seen him in the room with the chess group, which again, I'm still amazed of how many kids are interested in chess, and it's wonderful. They're the ones we want to be on the town council and the board. People who dive in and come and are willing to come here on an evening and spend their evening listening to this and listening what's going on, and often coming to speak their truths. I know Mr. Pelkey spoke eloquently about the need for other vocational type trainings and opportunities here. And we've taken that very seriously, and we appreciate those comments. But this is the exact kind of person that when I remember Miss Taylor, she was very outspoken, maybe somewhat non-diplomatic, but she was speaking her truth on an issue that was very passionate and important. And so there's a difference between when you come here and you have your right and audience to visitor, you got your 3 minutes, unless you're disparaging, we hear the remarks about disparaging other children or something, you have your right to speak your truth. And Ms. Jacobson has done that on a number of occasions. When we talked even about should we be having a cell phone policy, she was already a safety monitor and said, yes, bag and tag is going on. I see it. It's going on. But that's the kind of person we wouldn't want up here, someone who volunteers to say, how can I make things better when they hear there's a problem? I understand she's passionate, and I've had passionate arguments with her or discussions with her, but I think she clearly understands the nature. She's on the Human Relations Commission in town, the difference of being an advocate and being in that chair and what it means to be on this side of the dais. And so, again, I strongly support her, and I hope we do get a unanimous vote in her favor. Thank you. Anybody for a second go-round? Seeing here and none, I'd like a roll call vote. Ms. Staley?
Robin Daly, Board of Education stenographer. Jill Cantor,
No, I'm not in favor.
David Fury,
Yes.
Julene Golinsky,
No.
Jeremy Halleck,
No.
Leonard Lockhart,
Yes.
Paul Panos,
No.
Ayanna Taylor,
Yes.
Nathan Wollaston.
Yes.
4-4.
The motion being 4-4 means that the motion did not carry. That's correct. Thank you. The next item of business, other matters, announcements, regular Board of Ed meetings. Board of Ed special meeting on Tuesday, the 31st at 6:30 p.m. in the LPW boardroom. Next regular Board of Education meeting, Tuesday, June 21st, 2022, 7 p.m., LPW boardroom.
Are you doing board comments before audience to visitors? because then we're gonna come back from executive session. It'll be a done deal, you know what I mean? Yep.
Should we do it before audience? Or
Yeah, just pretty quick.
at this point, I know it's not on the list, but we usually allow folks, if they have anything else to comment on, to comment at the end. And since we're going to go into executive session at the end here, we're going to push this up to now. So I'll go back and forth. Mr. Halleck, anything else to add?
As we all know, this weekend is a Shad Derby, so I just want to, it's our first Shad Derby in a couple of years. I just want to ask everyone to be safe out there. It's going to be a really warm day in the 90s, so make sure you stay hydrated, drink lots of water, and hopefully it's a great day for everybody. And that's really all I had.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wollaston, anything to add? Ms. Galinsky.
Yes, Mr. Halleck kind of stole some of my words, but I was going to say, I'm really looking forward to the Shad Derby. You know, I've been seeing individuals fishing up and down the Connecticut River for the past month, so I can tell that there's a lot of people that are really excited for that little portion. But I'm excited to come out and do a town event with lots of people, especially after a 2-year hiatus. So please come out and don't wear pants. It's going to be so warm. It's going to be amazing. Wear shorts or a skirt or a dress. Just dress appropriately.
Hope that's not something you can opt out of. Ms. Taylor.
We won't meet again until after the students have graduated, right? So, yeah. So congratulating the class of 2022, like I always say, from a class of 1999.
Ms. Cantor.
Thank you. You two stole my blurbs of a nurse. Be hydrated, sunscreen, stay cool, stay in the shade. Don't push yourself really hard because we're not used to the hot, humid weather. It's supposed to be in the 90s. And enjoy getting out, have fun, take part in everything that you can. And congratulations to the students for the class of 2022 because we won't see them again till we meet, you know, later, so they'll be have graduated. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lockhart.
Yes, on behalf of CABE, as First Vice President, I want to say congratulations to the 4 students that was awarded this evening. That was all through CABE. So Dr. Hill, through your staff, thank you for recommending them and CABE approving them. So I kind of take a little pleasure of that when I see Windsor come across the dais at the CABE level. So thank you very much. Next off, congratulations to the graduates, as well as all the students that's going through the promotional exercises, moving from building to building. And on a somber note, school bus safety is something that's very critical to all of that are listening to me. Safety and driving laws are there for a reason. We had a very, very difficult incident that happened one town over where it was a fatality, and it was a car that somehow managed to strike a school bus. And I'm really concerned about the children that was on the bus that witnessed that. It's just not a good thing, and I would like to think that it was unpreventable, but I don't want to speculate. But too often we see a lot of people drive past through school buses with the arm out, with the stop sign out. We all have our children trying to safely get on these buses, trying to navigate the roads to get to the buses. It's just a little ounce of patience just to make sure that, one, the kids get on and off the bus safely, but more importantly, give the operators of the bus the safety zone to actually operate the bus. So those individuals are having a very tough night, all those that are impacted in both of those vehicles. And I just say, please, I understand we're in a very busy society and we're trying to get from point A to point B quickly, but it's not worth the safety of our children and the school bus drivers to sacrifice saving 30 seconds to getting where you need to be. I just implore you, please, follow the traffic laws as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Panos.
Would like to congratulate the graduates or those who are about to graduate, and also look forward to fun on the Shad Derby Day. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I have to be unanimous here in thanking the graduates. Congratulations to all the graduates. Windsor Robotics recently moved from Roger Walcott School, which was sold to CREC a couple of months ago, and we are now in the old ambulance building. That's Team Paragon and the Blazing Spirits, the two robotics teams that I'm involved with. And we have a lease that was approved by the town council a couple of weeks ago, and it was unanimous, which was nice. And Mr. Eleveld in particular spoke about the benefits that he's seen from his own daughter's involvement in the program. And between the two teams, we had about 30 volunteers to one of his Rotary events of helping to feed those who have food insecurity for the Windsor Food Bank. So it's going to be a nice, centrally located. We don't have to provide food for the kids. They can now go over to McDonald's because it's right next door. But we hope to have an open house at some point with that. We're still in the process of moving in. So the next item on the agenda is audience to visitor. Ms. Daly, back to you again.
Oh, sorry. Did I give 3,000 for? I thought she was going to go to the Zoom.
No.
Sorry.
Good evening. This is Robin Daly from the Superintendent's Office. If there's anyone from the public who would like to address the board, you may do so in two different ways. If you are using the Zoom application on your mobile device or computer, you may enter your comments into the Q&A feature located at the bottom of the Zoom menu bar. Or you may raise your hand on your computer if your device has a microphone by selecting the participant's icon in the Zoom menu bar and then clicking raise hand, or by dialing *9 on your phone. You will be given 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name and address. When you are called on, you'll be prompted with "You are now unmuted." For clear communication, we ask that you do not place the call on speakerphone. No comments can be made against the employees of the school district or children outside of your own.
Okay, I'm going to go again to the boardroom first, since there have been some people waiting here.
James Madison, 8 Fitzmaurice Circle. I'm a big fan of Becky's, but I support the decision of the Republican constituency of the board. And the reason is that one of the key things you have to have going for you if you're going to be on a deliberative body is the ability to be deliberative. And one of the concerns I have is, you know, I love that Becky's so active. I love her compassion and her passion. But, you know, the thing that needed to be demonstrated tonight was the ability to be carefully deliberative in a governing body. And so most of the support didn't address that, and Paul articulated it quite well. And so in terms of, you know, that would be one thing to focus on. To give a couple examples of that, I would think, you know, one of the things is, for example, I helped interview for the principals. And it was a very well-structured process, and I followed it to the letter to the best of my abilities, regardless of my personal opinion. That's an example of following a rule, regardless of what you might believe. You've also heard me speak in a number of forums where I've said that January 6th was an absolute atrocity, that rioting on the Capitol and smashing windows is terrible, as is burning down the big blue cities. I'm opposed to violence as a means of achieving goals. I don't care what side of the political spectrum does it. I am willing to be balanced on that position. You also heard me talk about SEL. I was looking at the pros and the cons. As I said, I'm a huge fan of it, but it costs money. That's a deliberative position, right? So just to give a few examples of where I've tried to be carefully deliberative about things. Personally, philosophically, if you want to go out for a beer, you're going to realize how strong some of my opinions are. You usually don't hear them up here, except for the one time that girl was told she can't celebrate all Black History Month because she's half, you know, anyway, that got me mad. But other than that, I try to be very deliberative and thoughtful. So people who make up their minds, frankly, too far in advance and too strongly are scary. I've said to a number of folks, you know, I don't care if it's left or right. If we could take, you know, the most extreme views on the left and the right and put them on an island somewhere, and the 80% of us in the mostly middle can get the rest of the job done, that'd be fantastic. But as much as I love Becky, I do understand the position of the Republican board members, because she takes a very strong position. It is very far left. And frankly, I was a liberal Democrat for 15 years, and I'm now on the right, partially because I've sat in the same place for all these years, and I've watched the right kind of loosen up, and I've watched the left get a little bit too strong for my taste. And so I would just offer that flexibility, a history of being deliberative and thoughtful about things tends to resonate well when you go for things like trying to be on the board when there's a vacancy. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the board?
Will Pelkey, 133 Portman Street. Mr. President, I hope you'll be out in the campaign trail, both for me and Mr. Madison next time. Appreciate your words. We got your endorsements on film. Thank you. I just wanted to comment about the continuing for vocational education, and it's one of the things that I'm definitely not going to stop pushing on. I think we do need exposure, and I know there are folks on both sides of the dais who have reservations at an elementary school level for these things. And I completely understand that. I agree with Dr. Hill. We don't need to make, kindergartners into electricians right away. But in the same way with Mr. Wolston, with his idea tonight of let's have an intro course that gives some sort of introduction, I still want to continue to have these touch points. It doesn't have to be a whole class. It doesn't have to be a course. It doesn't have to be. But if you're doing something in science and you're doing potatoes and wires and a light bulb, I mean, you can very easily start to say, well, hey, this is sort of what an electrician does. So you can at least have a touch point on those sort of things. And that's the sort of inclusivity that I'd like to see for this vocational education. You can very much start to say, oh, okay, we're looking and trying to use Microsoft Excel or something like that. I don't know where all of these things fall in the curriculum, but again, you can start pointing out this is what a financial analyst is going to look at. They're going to use programs like this. And it just gives an awareness, because I remember being at New Britain High when I was a student, and I said, I don't know what any of these things are or do. And the earlier you can start getting some of these things out there, it very much helps. I mean, where I currently am employed, how many of you ever thought when you were in school, or ever even heard when you were in school, of what an NDT inspector is, or what chemical processing is, or fluorescent penetrant inspection? What about a quality technician or something like that? These are different things that, again, I'm not saying that it just has to be name dropping along the way, but they're very small touch points that I think should be included at an elementary, not necessarily a full class. I am very grateful for the fire department. I am the great-grandson of a firefighter who actually died in the line of duty, so I very much have a respect for that. I also got to see the Windsor Fire Department in action behind my house, and very much applaud them, too. But I think that's a very great way to serve our community, because we are going to get people from that fire education program. We're going to get one or two at least who are going to stay and help. And it's all because of this push for vocational education. So I hope you continue that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Daly, anyone online?
Yes, there is a hand raised. Ms. Grossman, you are now unmuted.
Hi, Sally Grossman, Niles Road. I'm disappointed by the vote tonight for Becky Jacobson. I, however, am not surprised by Paul Pano's blatant sexism and calling a woman too emotional to serve in that position. But more so, I'm having a problem with some of the Democrats on the Board of Ed. When someone is nominating a person for a position and one of their best selling points is that it is their duty to nominate this person, I feel like this nomination wasn't put forth in good faith. Unfortunately, Becky Jacobson got dragged down by dirty politics within our own Windsor Democratic Town Committee, which I am a member. 3 years ago, a rape allegation was made against one of our Democratic town council members, and it was made public, and our DTC hid those allegations. There were several members of our Democratic town committee who thought that was wrong and wanted to change procedures so something like that didn't happen again. And Ms. Jacobson was one of those people. She resigned from the DTC because nothing was being done about it. The DTC did not take this seriously, and they continue to hide these allegations. So it is really disappointing to see our own Democratic members fighting against one of their own who they know would be an amazing public servant on the Board of Education. So I'm just really disappointed in this whole meeting tonight. I think you all can do better. Thank you.
Anyone else, Ms. Daly?
There are no other hands raised. And at this time, there are no comments in the Q&A feature.
Okay, without objection, close audience to visitor. So ordered. Next item is a motion.
Move the Board of Education into executive session for the purpose of discussing the performance of a district staff member. We invite Superintendent Dr. Terrell Hill and Ms. Danielle Batchelder, Director of Business Services and Human Resources, to be part of the discussion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Cantor. Any discussion? Seeing none. As of 10 o'clock, we are in executive session.
It's funny, Kevin, because I saw you take the ones from these tables, and I wasn't even thinking it because I was out of the room.
It'll pick you up, just for the
Yeah.
Yep. We're back in session, and I'm looking for a motion. Move to adjourn. Second. Is there a second? Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, second by Mr. Campbell. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstentions?